True mates are forever. The bond cannot be broken. That's what Alara's grandmother whispered to her every night before bed, tracing the silver birthmark on her wrist that marked her as one of the blessed. But Alara would learn that forever was just another word for until someone better comes along. Because when you're marked as worthless by the one person destined to love you, you discover that some bonds aren't just broken, they're shattered, ground into dust, and scattered to the wind while everyone you've ever known watches and does nothing. The Silver Pine Pack had always believed in the sacred bond. They'd built their entire society around it. Mate bonds were divine, unbreakable, eternal. The moon goddess herself had woven them into the fabric of fate. But the moon goddess, Alara learned on her 20th birthday, had a cruel sense of humor. Chapter 1. The Blessing That Became a Curse. The morning started like every other morning in Alara's life, with her older sister Vivian's laughter echoing through the packhouse halls like wind chimes made of glass and superiority. Alara. Mother needs you in the kitchens. The Alpha's breakfast won't prepare itself. Alara pressed her forehead against the cool window of her small attic room, watching the dawn paint the forest in shades of amber and gold. 20 years old today. The age when dormant wolves finally awakened. The age when true mates could sense each other for the first time. Her wolf had been silent her entire life. The pack healers said it was normal for late bloomers, that some wolves took longer to emerge. But Alara knew the truth. Everyone was too polite to say out loud. Weak wolves came from weak bloodlines, and her bloodline was the weakest in Silver Pine. Her father had been an Omega who died defending the pack from rogues when she was 5. Honorable, yes, but Omegas didn't produce strong offspring. Her mother had remarried within a year to Beta William, Vivian's father. A smart match that elevated her mother's station but did nothing for Alara except give her a stepsister who never let her forget exactly where she ranked. Alara. She pulled on her worn jeans and faded gray sweater, the same clothes she wore every day because they were the only ones without holes, and hurried downstairs. The packhouse kitchen was already chaos. Her mother, Diana, stood in the center like a general commanding troops, her auburn hair perfectly styled, her dress perfectly pressed. She'd always been beautiful. That's what Beta Williams said when he told the story of how they met. Your mother was the most beautiful widow I'd ever seen. Not the most heartbroken. Not the strongest. Just beautiful. You're late, Diana said without looking up from the breakfast tray she was arranging. Scrambled eggs, turkey bacon, fresh berries, artisan bread. All for Alpha Dominic, who would eat maybe half and leave the rest. I'm sorry. Don't apologize, just work faster. The Alpha has important meetings today. The Blackwood Pack Alpha is visiting. Alara's hands stilled on the orange she was peeling. Alpha Cade Blackwood? Every wolf in the territory knew that name. The Blackwood Pack was the most powerful pack in the northern region, maybe in the entire country. And Alpha Cade was legendary. Ruthless. Powerful. Some said he'd killed his own father to take the Alpha position. Others said he'd killed his father's murderer, which somehow sounded both better and worse. Don't get any ideas, Vivian said, sweeping into the kitchen like she owned it. Which, technically, she would someday. Beta William was grooming her to take over his position. Alpha Cade isn't here for Omega daughters. He's here for the Alpha Summit. Vivian was everything Alara wasn't. Tall where Alara was average, blonde where Alara was dark-haired, confident where Alara was careful. Her wolf had awakened at 17 early and strong with a glossy golden coat that matched her hair. I wasn't thinking anything, Alara murmured, focusing on the orange. Good. Because today's your 20th birthday, which means Vivian's smile turned sharp. Today's the day you find out if anyone in this pack is unlucky enough to be mated to you. Diana's wooden spoon clattered against the counter. Vivian, that's enough. What? I'm just being honest. Everyone's thinking it. Vivian plucked a strawberry from the Alpha's tray and bit into it. Can you imagine? Some poor beta or warrior stuck with an Omega mate who can't even shift? He'd probably reject her on the spot just to... I said enough. But the damage was done. Alara's hands trembled as she finished the orange. The words reject her on the spot, echoing in her mind like a death knell. Rejection. The worst fate that could befall a wolf. When a mate rejected their bond, it didn't just break the connection. It shattered something fundamental in the rejected wolf's soul. Most didn't survive it. Those who did were never the same. Take the Alpha's breakfast up, Diana said, her voice gentler now. Almost kind. And Alara? Happy birthday. It was the closest thing to affection her mother had shown her in months. The Alpha's office was on the 3rd floor of the pack house, accessible only by the main staircase that spiraled up through the building's heart. Alara climbed it carefully, balancing the heavy tray, trying to ignore the pack members who passed her without acknowledgement. Invisibility was its own kind of curse. She knocked twice on the carved oak door. Come in. Alpha Dominic sat behind his massive desk, his silver-streaked hair catching the morning light. He'd been Alpha for 30 years, a good leader, fair and strong. Alara respected him. She just wished he'd notice her occasionally. Breakfast. Alpha, she said softly, setting the tray on the corner of his desk. He grunted acknowledgement, already absorbed in the documents spread before him. She turned to leave. Alara. She froze. He'd used her name. Alpha Dominic never used her name. Yes, Alpha? It's your 20th birthday. Yes, Alpha. He looked up then, and something in his gray eyes made her nervous. Pity? Concern? The mate bond. He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. It doesn't define your worth. Remember that. No matter what happens today. Her throat tightened. I understand, Alpha. But she didn't. Not really. How could the mate bond not define worth when everything in pack society was built around it? Mated pairs had status. Unmated wolves were incomplete. And rejected wolves? Rejected wolves were nothing. She left before he could see her eyes water. The morning passed in its usual blur of chores. Alara cleaned the common rooms, helped prepare lunch, mended torn training clothes in the sewing room. She'd learned long ago to make herself useful. Usefulness was armor against cruelty. But today, something felt different. Her skin felt too tight, her senses too sharp. Every sound was too loud, every smell too strong. The pack house pressed in on her like a fist, slowly closing. Your wolf is waking up, said a voice behind her. Alara spun, dropping the shirt she'd been mending. Gamma Theodore stood in the doorway of the sewing room, his weathered face creased with a rare smile. He was the oldest wolf in Silverpine, the pack's historian and occasional advisor to the Alpha. I don't feel any different, Alara lied. Don't you? His eyes still sharp despite his age studied her. Your scent is changing. Stronger. Your wolf is close to the surface now. Hope, dangerous and sharp, pierced through her carefully maintained defenses. Do you think? Could she be strong? Theodore's smile faded. Strength comes in many forms, child. Not all of them roar. It wasn't an answer. It was a warning. The Alpha Summit begins tonight, he continued. Many powerful wolves will be here. If your mate is among them. He paused. Be careful, Alara. The mate bond is a blessing, but it can also be a weapon. How can a bond be a weapon? When it's wielded by someone who knows your worth better than you do. He left before she could ask what he meant. The evening feast was legendary. Long tables stretched across the packhouse's great hall, groaning under platters of roasted meats, fresh bread, vegetables glazed with honey, and desserts that looked like edible art. The Silverpine pack had pulled out every stop to impress their visiting allies. Alara worked in the kitchen with the other Omegas, preparing plates, refilling drinks, staying invisible. She was good at invisible. But invisibility became impossible the moment Alpha Cade Blackwood walked through the door. The entire room fell silent. He was enormous. Not just tall though, he had to be at least 6'5" but massive, all shoulders and controlled power. His dark hair was pulled back in a style that should have looked civilized, but somehow only emphasized the predatory sharpness of his features. His eyes were the color of a forest at midnight green, so dark it was almost black. And his aura. God, his aura rolled through the room like thunder before a storm, pressing against every wolf present until they wanted to bare their throats in submission. This was an alpha in the truest sense. Not just by title, but by nature. Alpha Cade, Dominic said, stepping forward with his hand extended. Welcome to Silverpine. Cade's handshake was brief, perfunctory. His gaze swept the room, calculating, assessing, dismissing. It landed on Alara for exactly half a second, then moved on. She released a breath she hadn't known she was holding. Let the feast begin, Dominic announced. Alara worked through the evening, refilling wine glasses, clearing plates, trying not to stare at the visiting alpha, but it was impossible not to watch him. He commanded attention like gravity commanded planets. And he was. Cruel? No. Cold. Efficiently, precisely cold. When a young Silverpine warrior tried to engage him in conversation about territory disputes, Cade shut him down with 3 words and a look that could have frozen fire. Not your concern. The warrior shrank back like a scolded pup. Dominant, isn't he? Vivienne appeared at Alara's elbow, her eyes glittering with something predatory. I wonder if he's found his mate yet. Why would you care? Vivienne laughed. Because, baby sister, that's going to be one powerful Luna. And I intend to be powerful. She smoothed down her emerald dress. Cut low enough to be interesting. High enough to be tasteful. Watch and learn. Alara did watch as Vivienne glided across the room toward Alpha Cade's table. Watched as she laughed at something Beta Williams said, tossing her golden hair. Watched as she angled herself directly into Cade's line of sight. Watched as Cade looked at her for exactly as long as it took to catalog and dismiss her existence. Vivienne's smile never faltered, but Alara saw the flash of humiliation in her eyes. Good, Alara thought, then immediately felt guilty for thinking it. The pain started at midnight. Alara had retreated to the kitchen after the feast, washing dishes while the pack celebrated in the great hall. Music drifted through the walls, drums and guitars and howling laughter. Then her spine arched like someone had hooked it with a rope and pulled. The plate in her hands shattered against the floor. Her wolf was rising. The shift that should have happened gradually over weeks was happening in seconds. Bones cracked and reformed. Muscles tore and rebuilt. Her skin rippled like water. And then she was standing on 4 legs instead of 2. Alara looked down at her paws. Small. Gray. Unremarkable. But present. Real. Her wolf had finally awakened. Joy crashed through her, so intense it hurt. She had a wolf. She was complete, she was. The scent hit her like a physical blow. Pine and winter snow and something dark and rich she couldn't name. It wrapped around her, through her, into her, claiming every sense. Her wolf howled, a sound of pure recognition and need. Mate. The bond snapped into place like a cord of light connecting her soul to someone else's. She could feel him. Sense him. He was close. So close. Alara shifted back to human form, awkward and painful because she'd never done it before, and ran toward the scent. Through the kitchen. Down the hallway. Into the great hall where the celebration continued. And stopped. Because standing in the center of the room, his dark eyes fixed on her with an expression she couldn't read, was Alpha Cade Blackwood, her mate. The most powerful alpha in the territory was her mate. Chapter 2. The Bond That Burned. The world narrowed to a single point. Alpha Cade Blackwood's eyes. They widened fractionally, the only indication of surprise on his otherwise stone-carved face. Then something flickered through them. Recognition. Understanding. Horror. No. Not horror. Something worse. Disappointment. Alara felt the mate bond humming between them like a living thing, golden and warm and perfect. Her wolf surged inside her, desperate to get closer, to touch, to claim. The instinct was overwhelming, primal and absolute. But her human mind registered what her wolf refused to see. The way his jaw tightened. The way his shoulders went rigid. The way he looked at her like she was a problem that needed solving. The celebration noise died. Every wolf in the great hall turned to stare. Well, well. Someone whispered. Alara couldn't see who. The Omega finally shifted. And found her mate, another voice added. Alpha Cade. The whispers spread like wildfire. Shock. Disbelief. Some laughter, the cruel kind that cut worse than claws. Vivienne's voice rose above the rest. That can't be right. The moon goddess wouldn't. She cut herself off, but the damage was done. Wouldn't mate a powerful alpha to a worthless omega. Alpha Dominic stepped forward, his expression carefully neutral. Alpha Cade, it seems the moon goddess has blessed you with a mistake. Cade's voice was quiet. Controlled. Each word precise as a blade between ribs. The moon goddess has made a mistake. The bond between them flickered. Alara felt it a tremor like the first crack in ice before it breaks. There are no mistakes in mate bonds, Gamma Theodore said from somewhere in the crowd. His voice carried the weight of centuries. The moon goddess has given me an omega. Cade's eyes never left Alara's face. She couldn't look away, couldn't breathe. An omega who just shifted for the first time tonight. Who has no training, no strength, no status. He took a single step forward. The crowd parted like water. An omega who would be dead weight for a pack like Blackwood. Each word was a wound. Alara's wolf whimpered a sound of pure agony that only she could hear. She's young, Dominic said carefully. She can be trained. The mate bond is not enough. Cade stopped 3 feet from Alara. Close enough that she could smell him, that intoxicating scent of pine and winter that made her wolf keen with need. Close enough to see the absolute conviction in his eyes. I need a Luna who can lead, who can fight, who can stand beside me against enemies that would tear her apart for sport. His gaze raked over her, clinical and cold. What I have is a girl who couldn't shift until tonight. Who probably can't even mind link yet. He wasn't wrong. Alara tried to reach for the pack mind link, the telepathic connection all wolves shared, and found nothing. The skill took time to develop after the first shift. She was helpless, weak, everything he said. Give her a chance, Theodore said quietly. The bond chose her for a reason. The bond, Cade said, his voice dropping to something dangerous, is a biological imperative. Not divine wisdom. It's chemistry. Instinct. It doesn't account for political reality or pack survival. He looked at Dominic. I'm sure you understand. Alpha. If I return to Blackwood with an Omega Luna, my enemies will see it as weakness. They'll challenge me, attack. People will die because I was too sentimental to reject a bond that shouldn't exist. Reject. The word hung in the air like a guillotine blade. You can't, Alara whispered. Her first words. They came out broken. The rejection. It could kill me. Something flickered through Cade's expression. There and gone too fast to name. Then you're stronger than you look, he said. Because you're going to survive it. He took a breath. The crowd held theirs. And Alpha Cade Blackwood spoke the words that would shatter her. I, Cade Blackwood, Alpha of the Blackwood Pack, reject you, Alara. He paused. What's your last name? The question was somehow worse than the rejection itself. Kane, she whispered. Alara Kane. I reject you, Alara Kane, as my mate and Luna. I sever this bond by my will and by my word. The pain was immediate and absolute. It felt like someone had reached into her chest and ripped out her heart with their bare hands. The golden warmth of the mate bond twisted into barbed wire, shredding everything it touched. Her wolf howled a sound of such pure anguish that Alara collapsed to her knees. Somewhere far away she heard gasps, whispers, her mother's voice, Alara, but she couldn't respond, couldn't breathe. The rejection burned through every nerve, every cell, rewriting her existence from chosen to unwanted in the span of a heartbeat. She was supposed to accept the rejection. That's how it worked. The rejected mate had to speak the words of acceptance to complete the severing. But Alara's wolf, her new, fragile, finally awakened wolf, refused. No, her wolf snarled. Ours. He's ours. The bond wouldn't break completely. It dangled between them, half severed and screaming. Cade's eyes widened. Accept it, he commanded. Alpha will, pushing against her, trying to force compliance. Accept the rejection. Alara's wolf met his alpha will with something that shouldn't have been possible. Resistance. She forced the words through the pain. I don't accept. Silence. Complete and total. Then Cade did something she didn't expect. He smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. Brave, he said softly. Or stupid. Probably both. He crouched down so they were eye level. This close, the mate bond sang between them, damaged but desperate. Listen carefully, Alara Kane. You can refuse to accept. You can cling to this bond like a drowning woman clings to driftwood. But it won't change reality. His hand reached out. She thought he might touch her face, and her traitorous body leaned toward it, but instead he gripped her chin, not gently. I will never claim you, he said, each word deliberate. I will never mark you. I will never take you as my Luna. You can keep this broken bond if you want, but all it will do is make you feel every moment I'm with someone else, every time I touch another woman, every time I eventually choose a chosen mate and mark her instead. His fingers tightened. Is that really what you want? To spend your life feeling me build a bond with someone who isn't you? Tears streamed down Alara's face. She hated them. Hated her weakness. But they came anyway. Why? She whispered. Why would the moon goddess? I don't care why. He released her chin and stood. I only care about what is. And what is that you're not strong enough to be my Luna. Maybe if you'd been a beta, maybe if you'd shifted years ago and had training, maybe if you were literally anyone else. He turned away. But you're not. So accept the rejection and move on with your life. He walked toward the door. Alara's wolf screamed. Without thinking, without meaning to, she shifted a painful, clumsy shift that left her standing on 4 legs again. And she followed him. The crowd gasped. Someone tried to grab her. She thought it might be her mother, but she was faster, smaller. She darted through legs and around tables, chasing the scent of pine and winter, chasing her mate who didn't want her. Cade stopped at the pack house entrance. Didn't turn around. Don't, he said quietly. Alara shifted back to human. She was naked, shifting destroyed clothes, and she hadn't learned to control it yet, but she didn't care. Shame was nothing compared to the agony of the half-broken bond. I can learn, she said to his back. I can train. I can be strong. Just give me a chance. Please. No. Why not? He did turn then. And the look on his face made her wish he hadn't. Because I don't want to, he said simply. Because looking at you makes me feel trapped. Because every instinct I have is screaming at me to claim you. And I despise being controlled by biology. His eyes, those forest dark eyes that should have looked at her with love, were empty. Because you remind me that even the moon goddess can be wrong. Each word was a stone added to the weight crushing her chest. I'm sorry, Alara whispered. I'm sorry I'm not what you wanted. I'm sorry I'm weak. I'm sorry. Stop apologizing. His voice softened fractionally, almost kind, which somehow made it worse. This isn't your fault. You didn't choose to be my mate any more than I chose you. But that doesn't mean I have to accept it. He pulled off his jacket and tossed it to her. Cover yourself. Have some dignity. Then he walked out the door into the night. The bond stretched between them taut and screaming but didn't break. Alara stood there, naked except for his jacket that smelled like him, and felt something inside her shatter that had nothing to do with the mate bond. It was hope. Hope that she could be enough. Hope that she mattered. Hope that the universe had a plan that included her happiness. All of it died in the space between heartbeats. The pack house emptied slowly. Wolves drifted away, their whispers following them like ghosts. Did you see? Poor thing. He's right though. An Omega. She should just accept it. My cousin died from rejection. Maybe she's stronger than she looks. Or maybe she's just too stubborn to know when she's beaten. Alara sat on the floor where she'd collapsed, wrapped in Cade's jacket that was both comfort and torture. It still smelled like him. Her wolf curled up in her mind, whimpering, refusing to let go of the bond that was killing them both. Alara. And to his pride, her mother's voice. Diana knelt beside her, and for a moment, just a moment, Alara thought she might offer comfort. You need to accept the rejection, Diana said instead. Practical, always practical. Holding on to it will only hurt you more. He's my mate. He doesn't want to be. The truth was a slap. Why? Alara looked up at her mother through tears. Why am I not enough? What's wrong with me? Diana's expression flickered something that might have been pain, quickly hidden. Nothing is wrong with you. You're just not what an alpha needs. Not what any strong wolf needs. She smoothed Alara's hair back, a gesture that was almost tender. You're your father's daughter. Soft, kind, gentle. Those are beautiful qualities, Alara. But they're not Luna qualities. So I should just give up. I'm saying you should be realistic. Alpha Cade is right, you're not trained. You barely shifted for the first time tonight. Even if he gave you a chance, you'd fail. And then the rejection would hurt even more. Diana stood, brushing off her dress. Accept it. Move on. Find a nice Omega, or low-ranking wolf, who'll appreciate what you are, instead of mourning what you're not. She walked away, leaving Alara alone in the empty great hall. Alara didn't remember going back to her attic room, didn't remember climbing the stairs or closing the door. But she must have, because Dawn found her curled on her bed, still wearing Cade's jacket, staring at nothing. The bond ached, a constant throbbing pain that pulsed with every heartbeat. She could feel him, sense him somewhere in the pack house. Awake. Aware. Probably feeling the same pain and hating her for it. Accept it, her rational mind urged. He's right, you're not strong enough. You'll never be what he needs. But her wolf growled defiance. Ours. Fight with what? Alara whispered to the empty room. I have nothing. I am nothing. A knock at her door. Go away, she called. The door opened anyway. Gamma Theodore stepped inside, his ancient eyes sad and knowing. You're not nothing, he said, as if he'd heard her thoughts. You're just unfinished. That's a kind way of saying weak. It's an accurate way of saying young. He sat on the edge of her bed, his old bones creaking. Your father was an Omega. Yes. But do you know why he died defending the pack? Alara shook her head. Because he was the only one fast enough to get between the Alpha and a rogue's claws. The only one with the courage to sacrifice himself for someone stronger. Theodore's weathered hand covered hers. Omega doesn't mean weak, child. It means different. Smaller, yes, but also faster, more agile, more adaptable. Your father saved Alpha Dominic's life. Doesn't sound weak to me. Cade doesn't want adaptable. He wants powerful. Cade wants what he thinks he needs. But the moon goddess sees deeper than surface wants. Theodore squeezed her hand. I've lived 200 years, Alara. I've seen many mate bonds. And I've learned that the goddess doesn't make mistakes, she makes mysteries. The question isn't why you're not strong enough for him. It's why he's not wise enough to see your strength. What strength? I can barely shift. I can't fight. I can't. You survived your mate's rejection without accepting it. Theodore's eyes gleamed. Do you know how rare that is? How strong you have to be to resist the alpha will of someone like Cade Blackwood. Most wolves would have rolled over and accepted just from the force of his command. But you didn't. Your wolf said no. Alara hadn't thought about it like that. It doesn't matter, she said quietly. He still doesn't want me. Not yet. Theodore stood slowly. But bonds have a way of proving their worth. The moon goddess is patient. She plays a long game. He walked to the door, then paused. The Alpha Summit continues for 3 more days. Alpha Cade will be here. Use that time. Use it for what? To show him he's wrong about you. Theodore's smile was cryptic. Or to prove him right. Either way, you'll know. He left. Alara lay back on her bed, pulling Cade's jacket tighter around herself. 3 days. 3 days to somehow become someone worthy of the most powerful alpha in the territory. 3 days to transform from nothing into something. It was impossible. But her wolf had already done one impossible thing tonight. She'd resisted an alpha's command. Maybe she could do another. Chapter 3. The training begins. Alara didn't sleep. How could she, when every nerve in her body screamed with the half-severed bond? She felt Cade like a compass always pointing north, knew he was 3 floors below her, probably in one of the guest suites. Awake, like her, hating the connection as much as she craved it. When dawn finally broke, she made a decision. If she only had 3 days to prove herself, she couldn't waste a single hour. She stripped off Cade's jacket, though her wolf whined in protest, and pulled on her training clothes. Or what passed for training clothes. Old sweatpants and a threadbare tank top she'd found in the donation bin last year. The pack training grounds were on the eastern edge of the territory, a sprawling field surrounded by forest. Most wolves trained at dawn, before the day's responsibilities began. Alara had never been allowed to join them. Omegas weren't worth the trainer's time. But she was done asking permission. The morning air bit cold against her skin as she jogged toward the grounds. Her muscles protested she'd never been athletic, had spent her life doing domestic chores instead of physical training. But her wolf was awake now, lending her strength she'd never had before. She could do this. She had to. The training grounds came into view just as the sun crested the horizon. 20 or so wolves were already there, running drills under the watchful eye of Delta Jackson, the pack's head warrior trainer. He was massive, 6'6" of solid muscle and scar tissue, with a reputation for being merciless to anyone who wasted his time. Alara's steps faltered. Turn back. Her rational mind urged. You'll embarrass yourself. But her wolf pushed her forward. Strong. We'll be strong. She walked onto the field. Delta Jackson's head snapped toward her mid-instruction. His eyes narrowed. Trainings for pack warriors. Omega's report to the kitchens. I want to train. Her voice came out smaller than she'd intended. She forced steel into it. I need to train. Need? Jackson crossed his arms. The other wolves had stopped their drills to watch. Alara recognized most of them mid-ranking warriors, a few betas in training. Vivian's friend Tessa, who always looked at her like she was dirt. Last I checked, dishwashers don't need combat training. Laughter rippled through the group. Alara's cheeks burned, but she held her ground. I shifted last night. I have a wolf now. That makes me a pack warrior, doesn't it? That makes you a wolf who shifted late and has zero training. Jackson turned back to his warriors. Go home, girl. You'll get hurt out here. Then hurt me. The words came out before she could stop them. Jackson turned back slowly. Something dangerous flickered through his expression. What did you say? Alara's heart hammered, but she didn't back down. You said I'll get hurt. So hurt me. Train me. If I can't handle it, I'll leave. But if I can. She lifted her chin. If I can, then I deserve to be here as much as anyone else. Silence stretched across the field. Then Jackson smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. All right, he said softly. Let's see what you've got. Shift. Alara's stomach dropped. She'd only shifted twice, once last night when her wolf awakened, and once when she'd chased Cade. Both times had been instinct-driven, painful, clumsy, but she closed her eyes and reached for her wolf. The shift was agony. Her bones broke and reformed wrong the first time, and she had to force them back to human and try again. Sweat poured down her face. The other wolves watched with expressions ranging from pity to cruel amusement. Focus, her wolf urged. We can do this. She tried again. This time the shift took, and she stood on 4 legs, small, gray, unremarkable compared to the massive warriors around her. Pathetic. Tessa muttered loud enough to hear. Jackson circled Alara's wolf form, assessing. Small, weak bone structure, no muscle definition. He crouched down to her eye level. But fast, maybe. Let's test it. He shifted in a single fluid motion, a move so smooth it looked like water flowing uphill. His wolf was enormous, dark brown with a white blaze across his chest. An experienced Delta wolf who'd probably killed more rogues than Alara had seen in her entire life. Her wolf whimpered. Run, Jackson said, his voice coming through the pack mind link that Alara still couldn't access properly. But she understood the command in his posture. If you can reach the forest before I catch you, you can train with us. If I catch you. He didn't finish. Didn't need to. Alara ran. Her small legs pumped furiously, eating up ground faster than she'd expected. The forest was 100 yards away. She could make it. She could. Jackson's jaws closed on her tail. He didn't bite down hard, just hard enough to stop her, to prove his point. Then he released her, and shifted back to human. 7 seconds, he announced to the group. She lasted 7 seconds against a Delta. And she actually ran the right direction toward cover instead of open ground. Not completely stupid. Was that a compliment? But 7 seconds isn't enough. Jackson looked down at Alara, who'd shifted back to human and now crouched naked on the ground, trying to cover herself. Someone tossed her a training shirt. You want to train? Fine. But I'm not going easy on you just because you're late to the game. You do every drill, every exercise, every punishment. You fall behind, you stay after and make it up. You cry, you leave and don't come back. His eyes bored into hers. Understood? Alara pulled on the shirt. Understood. Good. Jackson turned to the rest of the group. Everyone. 20 laps around the field. Alara does 40. Go. The warriors took off running without complaint. Alara's legs already trembled from the short sprint. 40 laps would kill her. But she started running anyway. She made it through 32 laps before her body gave out. Her legs simply stopped working. She collapsed face first into the grass, lungs screaming, vision tunneling to pinpoints. "Get up." Jackson's voice from somewhere above her. "Can't," she gasped. "Then you're done. Go back to the kitchens where you belong." Her wolf snarled a weak sound, but defiant. Alara pressed her palms into the dirt, pushed. Her arms shook so badly she could barely hold herself up, but she managed to get to her knees. Then her feet. "Good," Jackson said. He actually sounded impressed. 8 more laps. Walk them if you have to, but finish. She walked them. By the time she stumbled across the finish line, every other warrior had long since finished and moved on to combat drills. They were paired off, sparring in human form strikes and blocks and takedowns that looked like a brutal dance. Alara wanted to join them. Wanted to learn. But her body had nothing left. "Tomorrow," Jackson said, appearing at her shoulder. "Tomorrow, you can try the combat drills. Today you've done enough." He handed her a water bottle. "You've got heart, girl. Heart isn't enough, but it's a start." "Will I?" She had to stop, catch her breath. "Will I ever be strong enough? Really strong?" Jackson was quiet for a long moment. Strong enough for what? To be worthy of an alpha mate, she didn't say. Strong enough to fight, she said instead. Anyone can be strong enough to fight if they're willing to hurt for it. He nodded toward the forest. "But if you're asking whether you'll ever be strong like them," he gestured to the warriors. "Probably not. You're Omega-born. Your wolf is smaller, lighter. You'll never have a Beta's strength or a Delta's power." Alara's hope crumbled. "But," Jackson continued, "you'll have other things. Speed, agility, endurance maybe, if you train it right. Omegas make excellent scouts and messengers for a reason. They're hard to catch, hard to pin down." His scarred face softened fractionally. "The question isn't whether you can be strong. It's whether you can be smart enough to use the strength you have." "I need to be more than smart," Alara said quietly. "I need to be exceptional." Why? Because her mate had rejected her for being ordinary. Because she had 3 days to somehow prove she could be a Luna. Because if she didn't, the bond would drive her slowly insane. "Personal reasons," she said. Jackson snorted. "Right. Personal reasons that have nothing to do with Alpha Cade Blackwood rejecting you in front of the entire pack last night." Heat flooded her cheeks. "Everyone knows?" "Girl, everyone in a 50-mile radius knows. That kind of drama spreads like wildfire." He studied her with new interest. "Is that what this is about? You think you can train for 3 days and somehow become Luna material?" "No," Alara admitted. "But I have to try anyway." Something shifted in Jackson's expression. Respect maybe. Or pity. Hard to tell. "All right," he said. "You want exceptional? Come back tonight after dinner. We'll do private training. And I do mean training, no coddling, no mercy, no quitting when it hurts." He leaned down so they were eye level. "But I'm warning you now. 3 days isn't enough time to transform from Omega to Luna. Even if you train every waking hour, the gap is too wide." "I know," her voice cracked. "But I have to try." Jackson straightened. "Then try. Just don't lose yourself in the trying." He walked away, leaving Alara alone on the training field with her screaming muscles and her impossible goal. The pack house was bustling when Alara limped back inside. Wolves moved through hallways with purpose, preparing for another day of the Alpha Summit, discussing territory treaties and alliance politics that Alara had never been important enough to understand. She headed for the kitchens, knowing her mother would be furious that she'd missed the morning breakfast service. But before she could reach them, a familiar voice stopped her. Well. Trying to play warrior now?" Vivienne leaned against the hallway wall, her perfect hair cascading over one shoulder, her expression dripping with false sympathy. "I saw you on the training field. That was painful to watch." "Move, Vivienne." Alara didn't have energy for this. "Oh, don't be like that. I'm just trying to help." Vivienne's smile was razor sharp. "See, I heard about your little plan. 3 days of training to somehow become worthy of Alpha Cade. It's sweet, really, delusional, but sweet. I said move. Here's the thing, baby sister. Vivienne pushed off the wall, blocking Alara's path completely. Even if you could somehow transform into a competent warrior in 3 days, which you can't, you're still Omega-born. You'll always be Omega-born. And alphas don't mate with Omegas. They just don't. The words hit exactly where they were meant to. Alpha Cade was right to reject you, Vivienne continued, her voice dropping to something almost kind. He was doing you a favor, because if he'd accepted the bond, you would have spent your whole life trying to be something you're not. You would have failed. And everyone would have watched you fail. She tilted her head. Isn't it better to just accept reality? Accept the rejection. Find some nice, low-ranking wolf who'll appreciate your domestic skills. Be happy with what you can have instead of torturing yourself over what you can't. Alara's wolf snarled. Or, Vivienne said, her eyes glittering, you could keep clinging to this fantasy, keep training, keep hoping, and in 3 days, when Alpha Cade leaves without a second glance, you can watch him go knowing you gave it everything and it still wasn't enough. She leaned in close. Which kind of failure do you prefer? Quick and merciful, or slow and devastating? For a moment, Alara wanted to hit her. Actually hit her. Her hand even curled into a fist. But violence wasn't her strength. Words weren't her strength. She had no strength, not really. Except one. Survival. You're right, Alara said quietly. Vivienne blinked, surprised. I am? I probably will fail. Training probably won't be enough. Alpha Cade probably will leave without looking back. Alara met her stepsister's eyes. But at least I'll fail trying. What's your excuse? Excuse for what? For why Alpha Cade looked at you last night like you were furniture. Alara took a step forward, forcing Vivienne to step back. You're everything I'm not: beautiful, confident, trained. Beta-born. You did everything right, wore the perfect dress, said the perfect things. And he still didn't want you either. Vivienne's face flushed red. That's different. He didn't even see you. Alara felt something fierce rise in her chest. At least he noticed me enough to reject me. You didn't even register. She walked past Vivienne, whose mouth opened and closed without sound. It wasn't much of a victory. But it was something. Diana was indeed furious. Where were you? She hissed as Alara entered the kitchen. The Alpha's breakfast was late. The visiting delegates had to wait for their tea. Do you have any idea how that reflects on this pack? I was training. Diana's wooden spoon clattered into the sink. Training. Training for what? To be stronger. You're Omega-born, Alara. You'll never be. Diana stopped herself, but the damage was done. Never be what? Alara's voice was flat. Never be worth anything. Never be good enough. Never be the kind of daughter you can be proud of. That's not what I meant. Yes, it is. Alara grabbed an apron, tying it with shaking hands. It's what everyone means, what they've always meant. I'm just finally hearing it clearly. She started washing dishes, the task she was actually good at, the task that defined her existence. Diana worked in silence beside her for several minutes. Then, quietly, your father used to say that. Alara looked up. Say what? That he heard things clearly. That being Omega meant he saw the world without the pride and posturing that clouded other wolves' vision. Diana's hands stilled in the soapy water. He said it was a gift, being underestimated. That people revealed their true selves, when they thought you didn't matter enough to hide from. And look where it got him. Dead at 35. It got him a death defending his alpha. A death with honor. Diana's eyes were distant, seeing someone long gone. He chose that death. Alara knew the rogue would kill him, did it anyway, because seeing clearly meant he understood that some things were worth dying for. Like what? Diana finally looked at her. Like protecting people who mattered more than yourself. The words hung between them. Do I matter? Alara asked. To you, do I matter? Her mother's expression crumpled just for a second. Then she rebuilt it into something neutral and cold. Of course you do. You're my daughter, but not the one you wanted. Diana didn't deny it. Alara went back to washing dishes. After a long silence, Diana said, The Alpha Summit dinner is tonight. They'll need extra servers. You should rest before then. Translation. Your training fantasy is over. Get back to your real purpose. I'll be there, Alara said. She would be. But first, she had private training with Delta Jackson. And 3 days to become someone worth keeping. Even if it killed her. Chapter 4. The Gauntlet. Private training with Delta Jackson was less training and more torture disguised as education. Again, he barked. Ilara dragged herself up from the dirt for the 20th time. Her ribs ached where Jackson had swept her legs and let her fall. Her palms were raw and bleeding. Her wolf whimpered in the back of her mind, begging for rest. But rest meant failure. And failure meant proving everyone right. She shifted faster this time, the transition almost smooth, and lunged at Jackson's wolf form. He sidestepped easily. His tail whipped around and caught her in the flank, sending her tumbling across the training ground. Predictable, Jackson said through the mind link. His voice echoed strangely in her head. She still wasn't used to the telepathic connection. You're thinking like prey. Prey runs straight, fights desperate. You need to think like a hunter. Ilara shifted back to human, gasping. I don't know how to think like a hunter. Then learn. Jackson shifted back as well, his massive frame somehow graceful despite its size. Here's lesson 1. Hunters don't win through strength. They win through patience, strategy, knowing when to strike and when to wait. I don't have time for patience. I have 3 days, which is why you'll fail. Jackson's bluntness was almost refreshing. You're so focused on the deadline that you're not actually learning. You're just throwing yourself at an impossible goal and hoping desperation equals progress. What else am I supposed to do? Jackson studied her for a long moment. Answer me honestly, why do you want this? And don't give me some garbage about proving yourself. I want the real reason. Ilara's throat tightened. He's my mate. So the bond is just biology. Answer the real question. Why do you want him? Because the mate bond was supposed to mean something. Because the moon goddess chose them for each other. Because no one else ever will. Ilara whispered. The truth of it hit her like a physical blow. She sank to the ground, tears burning her eyes. I'm 20 years old and I've never been chosen for anything. Never been first pick for teams or projects or friendships. I'm the one people tolerate because they have to, not because they want to. Her voice cracked. And then the moon goddess gives me a mate, someone who's supposed to choose me, supposed to want me, and he doesn't. He looks at me and sees a mistake. Jackson was quiet. So yes, Ilara continued. I want to be strong enough to be his Luna. But more than that, I want to be strong enough to be chosen, just once, by someone, anyone. The silence stretched. Then Jackson did something unexpected. He sat down beside her in the dirt. I'm going to tell you something, and you're going to hate it, he said. But you need to hear it anyway. Ilara braced herself. You can't train someone into wanting you. You can become the strongest, fastest, most skilled warrior in the territory, and if Alpha K doesn't want you, he still won't want you. Jackson's scarred face was surprisingly gentle. Because want isn't logical. It's not about checking boxes or meeting requirements. It's about chemistry and choice. And 1,000 invisible things that have nothing to do with your worth. Then what's the point of any of this? The point, Jackson said, is that you don't train to make him want you. You train to make yourself strong enough that his not wanting you doesn't destroy you. The words settled into Ilara's chest like stones. When I was young, Jackson continued, I had a mate too. Beautiful beta female, strong as hell, smart, everything I thought I wanted. His eyes went distant. She rejected me, said I was too brutal, too violent, too damaged from all the fighting, said she couldn't love someone who had so much blood on his hands. What did you do? Tried to change. Tried to be softer, gentler, less of a warrior. Know what happened? He smiled bitterly. I became useless, weak. And she still didn't want me. Because I wasn't trying to be better for myself, I was trying to become someone else entirely. Someone she could love. Did you ever get over her? No, Jackson admitted. But I got over needing her. There's a difference. He stood, offering Ilara his hand. So here's what we're going to do. We're not training you to be Luna material. We're training you to be warrior material. We're training you to be strong enough that rejection doesn't kill you. And maybe in the process, you'll figure out who you actually are, instead of who you think you need to be. Alara took his hand. Let him pull her to her feet. Now, Jackson said, his commander voice returning. Show me your throat strike. And this time, commit to it. Stop pulling your attacks like you're apologizing for existing. She shifted and lunged. This time, she didn't hold back. The Alpha Summit dinner was even more elaborate than the previous night's feast. The great hall had been transformed into something from a fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow light across tables draped in midnight blue silk. Candles floated in the air. Actual floating candles, held aloft by the pack's resident witch, who charged a fortune for atmospheric magic. Alara moved through the crowd in her server's uniform, black pants, white shirt, invisible as always. But something had changed. Her body ached from training, yes, but she felt different. Stronger, more solid somehow. Or maybe just too tired to care what people thought anymore. Wine for the Alpha table, her mother instructed, shoving a crystal decanter into Alara's hands. The Alpha table, where Cade sat. Alara's wolf perked up immediately, the half-severed bond pulling tight. She could feel him even before she saw him, that magnetic awareness that made her skin prickle. He sat at Alpha Dominic's right hand, his expression carved from stone. Several other visiting Alphas occupied the table, along with their betas and high-ranking wolves. They were discussing something serious, territory disputes, from the sound of it. Alara approached carefully, keeping her eyes down. Professional. Invisible. She reached for Alpha Dominic's glass first. Saying the rogue problem is getting worse, one of the visiting Alphas was saying. 3 packs in the Southern Territory have been hit in the last month. Coordinated attacks. Rogues don't coordinate, another Alpha argued. They're mindless, feral. These ones aren't. Cade's voice cut through the discussion like a blade. They're organized. Led by something smart enough to plan strategy. Alara's hand trembled slightly as she poured his wine. Don't look at him, don't engage, just pour and move on. But her wolf had other ideas. Without her permission, her eyes flicked up to his face. He was already looking at her. The mate bond snapped tight between them, painful and electric. For one moment, she saw something flicker through his expression. Recognition, maybe regret. Then his jaw tightened, and he looked away. Your wine, Alpha, she murmured, setting the glass in front of him. Thank you, he said. Polite. Distant. Like she was just another servant. The dismissal hurt worse than the rejection had. Alara moved on to the next Alpha, forcing her hands steady. She could do this. She could stand here and serve him and pretend her heart wasn't shattering with every breath. Need to unite the packs, Dominic was saying. Form a coalition to hunt down whoever's leading these rogues. United packs need a unified command structure, Cade said. And every Alpha here wants to be the one in charge. Not every Alpha. A new voice, smooth and cold as winter ice. Some of us are content to let the strongest lead. Alara glanced up despite herself. The speaker was an Alpha she didn't recognize, younger than the others, maybe 30, with silver blonde hair and eyes like chips of pale blue glass, handsome in a way that felt dangerous, predatory. Alpha Theron Frost, Dominic said, gesturing to the newcomer. Thank you for joining us. I don't believe you've met Alpha Cade Blackwood. Oh, we've met. Theron's smile was all teeth. Haven't we, Cade? The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Frost, Cade acknowledged, his voice flat. Still leading the most powerful pack in the north? Theron asked lightly. Or has someone finally challenged your throne? My throne is secure. And your Luna position? I heard a rumor. Theron's pale eyes scanned the room, landing on Alara with uncomfortable precision. Something about a mate bond. A rejected mate bond. How unfortunate. Alara's face burned. She should leave, should disappear into the crowd. But her feet wouldn't move. The Luna position is none of your concern, Cade said, each word precise and cold. Oh, but it is. Theron leaned back in his chair, casual as a lounging cat. Because an Alpha without a Luna is an Alpha with a weakness. And weaknesses in leadership, he smiled. Well, they tend to attract challenges. Is that a threat, Frost? It's an observation. Theron's eyes slid back to Alara. Tell me, girl. Are you the rejected mate? Every Alpha at the table turned to stare at her. Alara's mouth went dry. She's a server, Cade interrupted, his voice hard. Nothing more. Now if you're done posturing, Frost, we have actual business to discuss. Nothing more. The words hit like a slap. Alara set down the wine decanter with trembling hands. "Excuse me," she whispered, and fled before anyone could see the tears. She made it to the kitchen before the sobs came. "He called you nothing." Delta Jackson's voice was dangerously quiet. Alara had found him in the training grounds after fleeing the dinner, unable to face going back to the pack house. She'd told him everything: Theron's questions, Cade's dismissal, the casual cruelty of being erased in front of an audience. He was protecting his reputation, Alara said, trying to be fair even though it hurt. An alpha can't look weak. He threw you under the bus to save face. Jackson's hands curled into fists. That's not protection. That's cowardice. He rejected me. He doesn't owe me anything. He owes you basic respect. Mate bond or not, you're a member of his mate's pack. And the way Jackson cut himself off, visibly restraining his anger. You know what? Forget him. Forget Alpha Cade Blackwood and his political games. Let's focus on you. There's nothing to focus on. I'm exactly what he said. Nothing. Stop. Jackson grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to meet his eyes. You ran 40 laps this morning when 32 should have killed you. You took 20 falls in training tonight, and got back up every single time. You're standing here having this conversation instead of accepting the rejection and moving on. That's not nothing. It's not enough. Not enough for what? For him? Jackson released her, frustrated. Listen to me. You keep measuring yourself against an impossible standard. Luna of the Blackwood pack. Do you even want that? Really want it? Or do you just want him to want you? Alara opened her mouth. Closed it. She didn't know. Here's what I think, Jackson said. I think you're so desperate to be chosen that you've convinced yourself the only thing worth being is what he wants. But what if he's wrong? What if you're meant to be something else entirely? Like what? I don't know. But we have 3 days to find out. Jackson pulled a training sword from the weapons rack. Now get up. We're doing blade work until you can't lift your arms. And tomorrow morning, you're running with the warriors again. 40 laps. Then we do it all over again. Why are you helping me? Alara asked quietly. You don't owe me anything. Jackson was quiet for a moment. Because someone should have helped me when I was trying to change myself for a mate who didn't want me. Maybe if they had, I would have figured out sooner that I didn't need to change at all. He tossed her the practice sword. Now come on. Show me what you've learned. Alara caught the sword and began to fight. She trained until midnight, then dragged herself back to the pack house, so exhausted she could barely climb the stairs to her attic room. But when she opened the door, she found she wasn't alone. Cade Blackwood stood by her window, his back to her, hands clasped behind him. How did you? Alara started. The bond tells me where you are, he said without turning around. Always. I can feel you like a compass pointing north. His shoulders tensed. It's inconvenient. Alara closed the door. She was too tired for this conversation, too hurt. What do you want? She asked. To apologize. That made her pause. For what? For tonight. For calling you nothing. He finally turned to face her. It was cruel. Unnecessarily so. But true, Alara said quietly. I am nothing. To you, to the pack, to... Stop. He crossed the room in 3 strides, stopping close enough that she could smell pine and winter. The bond pulled tight, desperate. You're not nothing. You're just not what I need. There's a difference. Is there? His jaw worked. I came here to tell you to accept the rejection. This half-severed bond is torture for both of us. Every moment I feel you, your pain, your determination, your... He cut himself off. Just accept it. Please. Let us both move on. Why does it matter? Alara asked. You've already rejected me. You can choose a new mate whenever you want. Find some powerful beta or alpha's daughter who actually deserves you. It doesn't work like that. As long as our bond exists, even half-severed, I can't properly form a bond with anyone else. The mate bond takes precedence. His eyes searched hers. You're keeping me trapped as much as I'm keeping you trapped. Good. The word came out before she could stop it. Small and petty and honest. Cade's eyes widened. Good? You rejected me in front of everyone. You called me a mistake. You humiliated me. Alara felt something fierce rise in her chest. So yes. Good. If I have to suffer this bond, so do you. At least we're suffering together. For a long moment, Cade just stared at her. Then he did something unexpected. He laughed. It wasn't a kind laugh, but it was real. You know what? He said. I underestimated you. I thought you'd be weak, broken, easy to dismiss. His eyes gleamed in the darkness. But you've got teeth, don't you? Hidden under all that omega softness. I'm learning to bite. I can see that. He stepped closer, and Alara's breath caught. But teeth won't make you Luna material. They'll just make you dangerous to yourself. Maybe I want to be dangerous. Maybe you should be careful what you wish for. His hand reached up slowly, giving her time to pull away, and touched her cheek. The contact sent electricity through the bond. Both of them flinched, but neither pulled back. 3 days. Alara Kane, the summit ends in 3 days, and I leave. When I do, this ends. One way or another. What does that mean? It means you have 3 days to either accept the rejection. His thumb traced her jawline. Or convince me I was wrong about you. Then he was gone. Moving too fast for her to respond. Alara stood alone in her room, heart racing, the ghost of his touch still burning on her skin. 3 days. 72 hours to become someone worth keeping. Or to accept that some bonds were meant to break. Subscribe if you believe Alara can be more than what Cade sees. Because underdogs deserve witnesses to their transformation, not just their defeat. Drop a comment, tell Alara what you'd do in her position. Would you fight for a mate who rejected you, or walk away with your head high? Chapter 5. The Challenge. Day 2 of training began before dawn. Alara's body screamed in protest as she dragged herself out of bed. Every muscle ached. Her ribs were bruised from yesterday's falls, her palms scabbed over from gripping practice weapons. Her wolf whimpered, begging for rest. But Cade's words echoed in her mind. 3 days to convince me I was wrong about you. She had wasted 1 day already. 2 remained. The training grounds were shrouded in pre-dawn mist when she arrived. Delta Jackson was already there, along with someone unexpected. Gamma Theodore. Good morning, child, Theodore said, his ancient eyes twinkling. Jackson tells me you're attempting the impossible, just attempting to be less useless, Alara muttered. Same thing, really. Theodore gestured to a cleared space in the center of the grounds. Jackson can teach you to fight, but I can teach you something more valuable. How to think like an alpha. I'm Omega-born. I can't. Omega-born doesn't mean Omega-minded. Theodore tapped his temple. Rank is biology. Leadership is choice. The moon goddess gave you a wolf, yes, but she also gave you a brain. Let's see if you know how to use it. He pulled out a worn leather journal and set it on a tree stump. This contains every major pack conflict in the Northern Territories for the last 50 years. Wars, treaties, betrayals, alliances. His gnarled finger traced the cover. I want you to read it, all of it, by tonight. Alara stared. That's hundreds of pages. 247 to be exact. Theodore smiled. Aluna doesn't just stand beside her alpha looking pretty. She advises, strategizes, understands politics and history and the complex web of pack relationships that can mean the difference between peace and war. He pushed the journal toward her. If you want to convince Alpha Cade you're Luna material, you need to prove you can think like one. Not just fight like one. I don't have time for both. Then make time. Jackson stepped forward. Here's the schedule. Dawn to noon. Physical training with me. Noon to sunset. Politics and strategy with Theodore. Sunset to midnight, combat drills again. Sleep 4 hours. Repeat. That's only 4 hours of sleep, which is 3 more than warriors get during active conflicts. Jackson's expression was unforgiving. You want exceptional? This is what exceptional costs. Alara looked between them, the scarred Delta and the ancient Gamma. 2 wolves who had no reason to help her but were offering anyway. Why? She asked. Why do either of you care? Theodore and Jackson exchanged a glance. Because this pack has forgotten what omegas are actually for, Theodore said quietly. We've turned them into servants and dismissed their value. But before the hierarchies calcified, before alphas became gods and omegas became nothing, we were all just wolves. Some stronger, some faster, some smarter, all necessary. His eyes held centuries of memory. Your father understood that. He died proving it. Maybe you can live proving it instead. And I'm doing this, Jackson added, because I'm tired of watching strong wolves get crushed by rejection. If you're going to go down, you're going down fighting, not whimpering. Alara's throat tightened. Thank you. Don't thank us yet, Jackson said. You might hate us by the end of this. Now drop, and give me 50 push-ups. Then we run. Alara dropped. The morning was brutal. Jackson pushed her harder than the day before, faster runs, longer drills, no breaks. When she collapsed after her 35th lap, he made her shift and run 10 more in wolf form. When her wolf stumbled, he nipped at her heels until she found speed she didn't know she had. Faster, he barked through the mind link. You think rogues will give you time to catch your breath? Move. She moved. By noon she could barely stand. Her legs trembled. Her vision swam. But she'd completed every drill, every lap, every impossible demand. Better, Jackson said, which was the closest thing to praise she'd gotten. Now go. Theodore's waiting. Alara limped toward the library where Theodore had set up their strategy session. She was filthy, soaked with sweat, probably smelled like a wet dog. But there was no time to clean up. Theodore sat in a leather chair, surrounded by maps and journals, and stacks of documents that looked older than Alara's grandmother. Sit, he commanded, and start reading. Page 1. Out loud. Out loud? Reading silently is for pleasure. Reading aloud forces comprehension. He poured himself tea from a delicate porcelain pot. Begin. Alara opened the journal. The first entry was dated 53 years ago. The Winter War began when Alpha Gregor of the Frost Pack accused Alpha Helena of the Silverpine Pack of harboring rogues who had killed 3 of his wolves. She read, and read, and read. Theodore interrupted constantly. Why did Gregor accuse Helena specifically? I don't know. It doesn't say. Think. What does accusing someone publicly accomplish? Alara's exhausted brain struggled to process. It makes them look guilty? Even if they're not? And, exactly, political chess. Gregor wanted Helena's territory. The accusation was just justification for what he already planned to do. Theodore made a note. Continue. Hours passed. The journal revealed a history Alara had never known, the brutal reality of pack politics. Alliances formed and broken over insults and accidents. Wars fought over territory disputes that could have been solved with conversation. Leaders manipulated, betrayed, sacrificed. Here, Theodore said, stopping her on a passage about a Luna who had prevented a war. Read this part again. Luna Serafina, mate to Alpha Wilhelm, discovered the rogue attacks were actually orchestrated by Wilhelm's own beta, who sought to start a war that would elevate his status. Rather than expose the beta publicly, which would have humiliated Wilhelm, Serafina arranged for the beta to be caught in an act of obvious treachery that Wilhelm could punish without losing face. War was averted. The beta was executed. And Wilhelm's reputation remained intact. What's the lesson? Theodore asked. That. The Luna protects the Alpha's reputation, even when the Alpha is wrong. Close. The lesson is that a good Luna thinks 3 moves ahead. She sees problems before they become disasters. And she solves them in ways that make her Alpha look strong, not foolish. Theodore's eyes gleamed. Strength isn't always claws and teeth. Sometimes it's knowing when to hide the blade. Alara's mind whirled. She'd never thought about leadership this way, as strategy rather than dominance. Keep reading, Theodore said. By sunset, Alara's voice was hoarse, and her head pounded with information, but something had shifted. The world of pack politics was starting to make sense, the careful dance of power and perception, the difference between being right and being smart. Enough, Theodore finally said. Tonight you'll attend the summit dinner again. But this time, you'll watch. Pay attention to who speaks to whom. Who makes eye contact. Who avoids whom. Pack politics isn't just about what's said, it's about what isn't. I'll be serving, I can't just stand around watching. Then serve with your eyes open. Theodore closed the journal. You have 1 day left after this one, child. 1 day to prove you can be more than what Cade Blackwood sees. Use every moment. The summit dinner was already underway when Alara arrived, freshly showered but exhausted to her bones. The great hall buzzed with conversation. Alphas clustered in groups, their betas hovering nearby like satellites. Alara grabbed a tray of appetizers and began circulating, but this time she did what Theodore instructed. She watched. Alpha Dominic stood with 3 other alphas, his posture relaxed, but his eyes kept tracking someone across the room. Alpha Theron Frost, who held court near the windows with a group of younger wolves. Dominic doesn't trust Frost, Alara realized. He's watching him like prey watches a predator. She moved closer to Frost's group, offering wine. Saying the rogue problem is actually an opportunity, Frost was saying, his voice smooth as silk. Think about it. Packs united against a common enemy. One strong leader coordinating the defense. Temporary, of course, just until the threat is neutralized. And who would this strong leader be? Asked a beta. Alara didn't recognize. Frost's smile was all teeth. Whoever proves themselves most capable. He wants to use the rogue crisis to consolidate power, Alara thought. Make himself indispensable, then refuse to step down. She filed the information away. Across the room, Cade stood alone near the fireplace, his expression carved from stone. Every few moments, an alpha or beta would approach him, attempt conversation, and be dismissed with single-word answers. The mate bond pulled at Alara, urging her closer. She resisted, but then Frost approached Cade, and Alara found herself drifting within earshot despite her better judgment. Alpha Cade, Frost said warmly. I wanted to apologize for last night. My comment about your mate situation was inappropriate. It was, Cade agreed coldly. It's just that I worry, you understand. The Blackwood pack is powerful, yes. But power without a Luna to stabilize it. Frost trailed off delicately. Well, history shows us what happens to unmated alphas. They become unpredictable. I'm perfectly stable. Of course, of course. Frost's pale eyes gleamed. But perception matters. Your pack sees you reject your true mate, a gift from the moon goddess herself, and they wonder, what else might you reject? Tradition, pack bonds, loyalty? Cade's jaw tightened. What are you implying, Frost? Nothing at all. I'm simply saying that if I were in your position, I'd be concerned about challenges to my authority. An alpha who rejects his mate looks weak. And weak alphas. Frost smiled. They don't stay alphas long. Is that a threat? It's friendly advice. Frost clapped Cade on the shoulder. A gesture that was deliberately too familiar. Perhaps you should reconsider your rejection. Show your pack that you value the moon goddess's wisdom, even if the mate is less than ideal. Less than ideal. The words burned. Cade's eyes found Alara across the room. For one moment, something complicated flickered through his expression. Then he looked back at Frost. My mate situation is none of your concern. And if you threaten me again, even dressed as advice, I'll rip your throat out. We clear? Frost's smile never wavered. Crystal. He walked away, and Alara saw something that made her blood run cold. As Frost passed other alphas, he made small gestures. A nod here. A meaningful look there. Like he was coordinating something. He's building a coalition, Alara realized. Planning something. She needed to tell someone. Dominic? Theodore? But before she could move, a hand grabbed her arm. We need to talk. Vivienne hissed, dragging Alara toward the hallway. Now. Vivienne pulled Alara into an empty corridor. Her perfect face twisted with something ugly. You need to accept the rejection, she said without preamble. That's none of your business. It is when your selfishness affects the entire pack. Vivienne's voice rose. Do you have any idea what you're doing? Alpha Cade looks weak because of you. And when he looks weak, Silverpine looks weak for hosting him. We could lose alliances over this. That's not my fault. It is your fault. You're clinging to a bond he doesn't want, embarrassing him in front of every alpha in the territory. Vivienne's eyes blazed. Just accept it. Let him move on. Let all of us move on. Why do you care so much? Alara asked quietly. Then understanding dawned. Oh, you want him for yourself. Vivian's face flushed. Don't be ridiculous. You think if I accept the rejection, he'll notice you, choose you as a chosen mate, instead of waiting for another true mate. Alara almost laughed. He already doesn't see you, Vivian. Me accepting won't change that. At least I'm Luna material. Vivian snapped. At least I could actually help him instead of dragging him down. Then why hasn't he chosen you already? Alara stepped closer. I've been watching tonight. Really watching. And I've seen a dozen female wolves try to catch his attention. Beautiful, strong, high-ranking wolves. He dismissed every single one. She tilted her head. Maybe the problem isn't me. Maybe the problem is that he doesn't want anyone. And you can't accept that you're not special enough to change his mind. Vivian's hand connected with Alara's cheek before she could dodge. The slap echoed in the empty hallway. You're nothing, Vivian said, her voice shaking. And when Alpha Cade leaves in 2 days without a second glance, everyone will remember that you had a chance to be gracious, and you chose to be pathetic instead. She stormed off, leaving Alara alone with a stinging cheek and a realization. Everyone wanted her to accept the rejection. Everyone wanted her to give up, to be quiet and convenient, and make their lives easier. Well, Alara was done making things easy. She walked back into the great hall, grabbed a tray of drinks, and headed straight for Alpha Cade. He saw her coming. His eyes narrowed in warning. She ignored it. Wine, Alpha? She asked, professional and calm. I'm fine. Are you sure? You look tense, like someone carrying a burden they don't want. Cade's hand shot out and grabbed her wrist. What are you doing? Serving drinks. What are you doing? Alara, I've been thinking about what you said last night. About convincing you that you were wrong. She met his eyes, refusing to flinch. You want to know what I learned today? That Lunas think 3 moves ahead. They see problems before they become disasters. So here's your problem. Alpha. Frost is building a coalition against you. Cade's grip tightened. What? He's been signaling to other alphas all night. Small gestures. Coordinating. Alara kept her voice low. I think he's planning to challenge your authority. Use the rogue crisis to make himself indispensable, then position himself as a better leader. How do you? Because I watched. Like you said I couldn't. She pulled her wrist free. I'm not strong enough to be your Luna. I know that. But I'm smart enough. And if you weren't so busy looking at what I lack, you might see what I have. She walked away before he could respond, her heart hammering. Behind her, she heard Cade's quiet voice. Alara. She didn't stop. Let him chase her for once. Chapter 6. The Revelation. Alara didn't sleep that night. She returned to her attic room after the dinner, her mind racing with everything she'd observed. The political undercurrents. Frost's subtle manipulations. The way Cade had looked at her after her warning, not with contempt, but with something that might have been surprise. Maybe even respect. Her cheek still stung from Vivian's slap. She touched it gingerly, then caught sight of herself in the small mirror above her dresser. She looked different, thinner, maybe, from the brutal training schedule, but also harder. Her eyes held something they hadn't before, a determination that bordered on recklessness. One day left, her wolf reminded her. One day to prove ourselves. A soft knock at her door made her jump. It's Theodore, came the gentle voice. May I come in? Alara opened the door. The ancient Gamma entered slowly, carrying a leather-bound book and what looked like formal clothing draped over his arm. You did well tonight, he said without preamble. Observing Frost's machinations. Warning Alpha Cade. That took courage. Or stupidity. Often the same thing. Theodore set the book on her small desk. This contains the lineage records of every major pack in the Northern Territories, including the Blackwood pack. His gnarled finger tapped the cover. If you truly want to understand Cade Blackwood, you need to understand where he comes from. Why would that matter? Because wolves are shaped by their bloodlines as much as their choices. Theodore's eyes were distant. The Blackwood Alphas have a complicated history, one that might explain why Cade is so resistant to the mate bond. Alara sat on her bed. Tell me. Theodore settled into her rickety desk chair. Cade's father, Alpha Darius Blackwood, was mated to a beautiful Luna named Celeste. She was everything a Luna should be: strong, intelligent, beloved by the pack. They had a son, Cade. And when Cade was 12, Alpha Darius found his true mate. Not Celeste. She'd been a chosen mate, selected for political reasons. His true mate was an Omega from a neighboring pack. A gentle, sweet girl named Isla. Alara's stomach dropped. She knew where this was going. The mate bond drove Darius mad. Theodore continued quietly. He couldn't resist it. Rejected Celeste despite their years together, despite their son, despite the stability she'd brought to the pack. He claimed Isla as his Luna instead. What happened? What always happens when an alpha chooses weakness over strength? Theodore's voice was heavy with old grief. Within 6 months, rival packs sensed vulnerability. They attacked. Isla tried to lead, but had no training, no experience. She panicked during a rogue assault and gave the wrong commands. 17 wolves died because she ordered them into a trap. Oh God. It gets worse. Celeste, the rejected mate, tried to help, stepped in to command the warriors because someone had to. But the pack was divided. Some followed her, some followed Isla. The confusion. Theodore closed his eyes. More died. And in the chaos, rogues killed Isla, tore her apart while Darius watched, too paralyzed by the mate bond's agony to function. Ilara's hand covered her mouth. Darius went feral with grief. Had to be put down by his own beta. Theodore opened his eyes. Cade was 13 when he watched his father die, watched his stepmother die, watched his birth mother Celeste take over as regent, until Cade was old enough to lead. And he swore he'd never let the mate bond control him the way it controlled his father. Understanding crashed over Ilara like a wave. He's not rejecting me because I'm weak, she whispered. He's rejecting me because he's terrified of becoming his father. Exactly. Theodore leaned forward. He saw firsthand what happens when an alpha chooses mate bond over pack stability. When biology overrides judgment. And now the moon goddess has given him an omega mate, the exact same scenario that destroyed his father. But I'm not Isla. I wouldn't. He doesn't know that. All he knows is history repeating. Theodore's expression softened. This is why I brought you this. He indicated the formal clothing he'd carried in a dress, midnight blue and elegant. Tomorrow is the final day of the summit. There will be a formal ball, and I'm going to teach you how to play the game. What game? Politics, strategy, the art of being a Luna. Theodore stood. You've learned to fight. You've learned pack history. Now you need to learn how to maneuver in a room full of alphas who'd sooner eat you than respect you. And tomorrow night, you're going to prove to Cade Blackwood that you're nothing like Isla. How? Theodore's smile was sharp. By solving his Frost problem before Frost even knows he has one. Dawn came too quickly. Ilara forced herself out of bed, every muscle screaming. Day 3. The final day. Jackson was waiting at the training grounds with a different energy than before, something urgent and focused. We're changing tactics, he announced. No more endurance training. Today we focus on one thing: speed. Speed? You'll never be the strongest wolf on the field. But you can be the fastest. He shifted into his massive brown wolf. Chase me. If you can tag me once, just once, before the sun reaches its peak, I'll call you trained. It seemed impossible. Jackson was a Delta warrior with decades of experience. She was an Omega who'd shifted for the first time 3 days ago. But Ilara shifted anyway. The chase was brutal. Jackson moved through the forest like smoke, always 3 steps ahead. Every time Ilara thought she'd close the gap, he'd dodge with infuriating ease. Hours passed. The sun climbed. Ilara's wolf body began to understand something. She couldn't match his strength or experience. But she was smaller, more agile. She could slip through spaces he couldn't, take turns tighter, move under obstacles instead of over them. She stopped chasing where he was and started anticipating where he'd be. When Jackson leaped over a fallen log, Ilara dove under it and came up on the other side, her teeth grazing his flank before he could dodge. Jackson shifted back to human, actually laughing. Good. That's good. You stopped fighting like him and started fighting like you. Alara shifted back, panting but grinning despite herself. I tagged you. You did. Jackson's respect was genuine. You're never going to win a straight fight against a stronger opponent. But if you're smart, if you use terrain, use surprise, use that brain, you can survive anything. He tossed her a water bottle. Now go. Theodore needs you. And tonight. His expression turned serious. Theodore's afternoon lessons were different than before. Instead of reading, he walked Alara through elaborate social scenarios. An alpha insults your mate in front of witnesses. What do? Defend him? Wrong. You laugh as if it were a joke, disarm the aggression with charm, and make a mental note to destroy that alpha politically later. Theodore paced her small room. Direct confrontation is what alphas do. Lunas are subtler. You're teaching me to be manipulative. I'm teaching you to be effective. Theodore stopped. Tonight, Frost will make his move. I'm certain of it. He's been building toward something all summit. And when he does, you need to be ready. Ready for what? To show Cade that you see what he doesn't. That you think 3 moves ahead. That you're not Isla, you're someone who makes him stronger, not weaker. Theodore pulled out a small vial of silver liquid. This is wolfsbane, diluted with spring water. Not enough to hurt a wolf, but enough to make them dizzy, disoriented. Why would I need? Because if I'm right about Frost's plan, he'll try to challenge Cade tonight. And challenges happen over drinks and toasts, and seemingly friendly gestures. Theodore pressed the vial into her hand. Watch Frost. Watch what he offers Cade. And be ready to intervene. You want me to poison Frost? I want you to level the playing field if he's already poisoned Cade. Theodore's eyes gleamed. Frost isn't honorable. If he challenges, it won't be fair. Which means, you get to be unfair right back. This is crazy. This is politics. Theodore headed for the door. Get dressed. The ball starts at sunset. And Alara? He paused. Your father would be proud of who you're becoming. Strong doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers poison into the right glass at the right moment. He left before she could respond. The midnight blue dress fit perfectly. Alara stared at herself in the mirror, hardly recognizing the wolf looking back. The dress was elegant but simple, designed to highlight rather than announce. Her dark hair was pulled back in a style Theodore had somehow known would frame her face just right. She looked, not beautiful maybe, but different, confident, like someone who belonged in a room full of alphas. The mate bond pulled tight in her chest. Cade was already at the ball. She could feel him like a magnetic north. This is it, her wolf said. Last chance. Alara tucked the vial of diluted wolfsbane into a hidden pocket in her dress, and went to play the most dangerous game of her life. The great hall had been transformed into something from a dream. Chandeliers sparkled overhead. Musicians played elegant waltzes. Alphas and their entourages moved through the space in formal dress, all teeth and territory claims disguised as pleasantries. Alara entered quietly, staying near the edges. She wasn't here to be seen. She was here to watch. Frost held court near the center of the room, surrounded by the same alphas he'd been cultivating all summit. His pale eyes tracked Cade across the space like a predator sizing up prey. Cade stood with Alpha Dominic, his formal black suit making him look even more dangerous than usual. He looked uncomfortable, like he'd rather be fighting rogues than making small talk. Their eyes met across the room. The mate bond snapped tight, and for one moment, the world narrowed to just the two of them. Alara saw something flicker through his expression, surprised that she was here, maybe, or something else she couldn't name. Then Frost's voice rang out across the hall. A toast, he raised his glass. To the Alpha Summit, to alliance and strength, and to Alpha Cade Blackwood, whose wisdom and power have guided the northern packs for so long. The words were respectful. The tone was poison. Every Alpha raised their glass. Alara watched as Frost's Beta, a thin wolf with nervous eyes, moved through the crowd, distributing specific glasses. She tracked which Alphas received which drinks. Most got clear crystal glasses. But Cade's glass had a hairline crack near the base, a marker. The poisoned glass, Alara realized with crystal clarity. She moved before she could think, weaved through the crowd as Frost's Beta approached Cade with the doctored drink. Alpha Cade, she said, appearing at his elbow. I'm so sorry. I'm terribly clumsy. She stumbled intentionally, perfectly into the beta. The glass tumbled from his hands and shattered on the marble floor. My apologies, Elara gasped, playing the flustered servant. Let me get you another. I'll get it, Dominic's server said quickly, already moving with a replacement from the untainted batch. Frost's eyes locked on Elara across the room, cold, calculating. He knew. Cade's hand caught her elbow, steadying her. Are you all right? Yes, She looked up at him. Mouthed silently. Don't drink anything he gives you. Understanding flashed through Cade's eyes. Then Frost was there, all smiles and false concern. What happened? My fault entirely, Elara said, keeping her eyes down. Submissive, unthreatening. I'm so clumsy. Indeed. Frost's smile didn't reach his eyes. Perhaps you should return to the kitchens. Leave the ball to those who belong here. She stays, Cade said quietly. Every nearby alpha turned to stare. I'm sorry? Frost's eyebrows rose. I said she stays. Cade's hand was still on Elara's elbow, protective. She's my mate. Rejected or not, she has as much right to be here as anyone. The silence was deafening. Then someone started clapping slowly. Alpha Dominic. Well said, Dominic announced. The mate bond is sacred. Rejection doesn't change that. He raised his glass, the clean one. To sacred bonds. May we honor them, even when they're difficult. Other alphas raised their glasses, awkwardly at first, then with more conviction. Frost's plan had just collapsed in real time. He couldn't challenge Cade now, not when Cade had just publicly honored the mate bond. Not when other alphas were supporting it. Any challenge would look petty and political rather than righteous. Frost's smile turned razor sharp. Of course. To sacred bonds. He drank deeply from his own glass, the clean one, Elara noted. He'd never been planning to poison himself. The moment passed. The musicians started playing again. Conversation resumed. But Elara had just made an enemy of the most dangerous alpha in the room. And Cade was looking at her like he'd never really seen her before. Dance with me, he said quietly. It wasn't a request. Cade led Elara onto the dance floor without waiting for her response. His hand settled on her waist, hers on his shoulder. The mate bond sang between them, electric and desperate. How did you know? He asked as they began to move. About the poisoned glass. I watched. Like you said, I couldn't. Elara kept her voice low. Frost's beta was marking specific glasses. Yours had a crack at the base. And you just stopped it, without hesitation. I told you I was smart enough. She met his eyes. You want to know what else I know? Frost wasn't planning to poison you fatally. Just enough to make you dizzy during a challenge. So when he beat you, it would look like he was legitimately stronger. Cade's jaw tightened. How do you? Because that's what I'd do if I wanted to take down an alpha without looking like a cheater. Wolfsbane in small doses causes disorientation, easy to hide in wine. And if you'd lost the challenge, no one would test for poison, because challenges are supposed to be honorable. You've thought about this a lot. I've spent the last 3 days learning to think like a Luna. Elara allowed herself a small smile. Turns out I'm better at strategy than I am at fighting. They moved across the floor in silence for a moment. Other couples gave them wide berth, everyone watching the rejected mates dance like they were watching a storm form. My father had an Omega mate, Cade said suddenly. She got his entire pack killed. I know, Theodore told me. Cade's steps faltered. He told you? About Isla. About how your father chose the mate bond over pack stability. About how you watched it all fall apart. Elara's voice softened. I'm sorry. That must have been terrifying. It was. His grip on her waist tightened fractionally. And then the moon goddess gave me you. An Omega. Like the universe was testing whether I'd learn my lesson. Or maybe, Elara said carefully, the universe was giving you a chance to heal. To prove that not all Omegas are Isla. That the mate bond doesn't have to destroy you. You saved me tonight, from Frost's poison. I leveled the playing field. There's a difference. Cade actually smiled, small and complicated. You know what the irony is? I rejected you because I thought you'd make me weak. But you just prevented an assassination attempt I didn't even see coming. You saw what I missed, thought what I didn't. His dark eyes searched hers. Who's the weak one here? You're not weak, you're scared. Alara said it without judgment. There's a difference. The music swelled around them. I have a question, Cade said quietly, and I want you to answer honestly. No politics, no strategy, just truth. All right. Do you actually want to be my Luna? Or do you just want to be wanted? The question hit like a physical blow. Alara opened her mouth, closed it. Because the truth was complicated and painful, and she'd never said it out loud. Both, she whispered. I want to be wanted. I've spent my whole life being nothing to everyone. And yes, the idea of being chosen by anyone is intoxicating. She forced herself to hold his gaze. But I see you, Cade. I see how alone you are, how scared you are of becoming your father, how much pressure you carry. And I want to help carry it. Not because you're my mate, but because you deserve someone who sees you as more than just an alpha title. Cade stopped moving. They stood frozen in the middle of the dance floor, while other couples swirled around them. That was honest, he said. You asked for honest. I did. His hand came up to cup her face. The same gesture from nights ago, but gentler this time. I need to think. About everything. About you. His thumb traced her cheekbone. But Alara? Thank you. For saving me. For seeing me. For being stronger than I gave you credit for. Does that mean? It means I need to think. He stepped back, releasing her. The summit ends tomorrow morning. I'll have an answer for you then. Then he walked away, leaving Alara alone on the dance floor with her heart in her throat and one day left to change destiny. Chapter 7. The Reckoning. Alara didn't return to the ball after Cade walked away. She slipped out through a side door, her heart thundering, her mind replaying his words over and over. I'll have an answer for you then. Not yes. Not no. Just maybe. After everything, the training, the strategy, saving him from Frost's poison, she still only had a maybe. The night air bit cold against her skin as she walked toward the forest edge. She needed space. Needed to think. Needed to. That was quite a performance. Alara spun. Alpha Theron Frost leaned against a tree, his pale eyes gleaming in the moonlight. I don't know what you mean, she said carefully. Don't play stupid. It doesn't suit you. Frost pushed off the tree, moving closer with predatory grace. You stopped my beta from giving Cade that drink. Knew exactly which glass was marked. That takes observation. Intelligence. His smile was cold. Or prior knowledge. I just saw. You saw what I wanted hidden. Which means you're either remarkably perceptive or someone warned you. Frost circled her like a wolf circling prey. Tell me, little Omega, who's feeding you information? Theodore? That brute Jackson? Or does Cade trust you more than he admits? Alara's pulse hammered. She was alone with a hostile alpha. No witnesses. No help. I figured it out myself, she said, forcing her voice steady. Did you? Frost stopped in front of her. Here's what I think happened. I think Theodore, that meddling old fossil, has been training you. Teaching you to play games you have no business playing, and tonight you interfered in something that doesn't concern you. If you were planning to poison an alpha, it concerns everyone. I wasn't planning to poison him. I was planning to test him. Frost's voice dropped dangerously low. Cade Blackwood is weak. Too cautious. Too paralyzed by his father's mistakes to make the hard choices this territory needs. Someone needs to challenge him. Take over. Lead properly. By cheating, by winning. Frost's hand shot out and gripped her throat, not tight enough to choke, but enough to terrify. You cost me tonight, little Omega. Made me look foolish. Do you have any idea what happens to wolves who make alphas look foolish? Alara's wolf snarled, rising to the surface. Without thinking, she shifted partial shift, just her hand, and slashed claws across Frost's forearm. He released her with a curse, blood dripping from 4 shallow cuts. They stared at each other, both breathing hard. You have teeth, Frost said, something like respect coloring his voice. Good. I hate killing things that don't fight back. He examined his bleeding arm. But you should know, this isn't over. Cade Blackwood will fall. Whether tonight, tomorrow, or next month he'll fall. And when he does, everyone who supported him will fall too. His pale eyes locked on hers. That includes you, little mate he doesn't want. Remember that. He walked away, leaving Alara shaking in the darkness. She ran. Not away toward the only place she felt safe anymore. The training grounds. Delta Jackson was there, running night drills with a group of warriors. He took one look at Alara's face and dismissed them. What happened? He demanded. She told him. Everything. Frost's threats. The partial shift. The claws she didn't know she could manifest. Jackson's expression darkened with each word. Frost threatened you directly. That's grounds for retaliation. He didn't actually hurt me. He put his hands on another alpha's mate without permission. That's a challenge in itself. Jackson paced, furious. We need to tell Cade. No. Alara. If I run to Cade every time someone threatens me, I prove I'm exactly what he thinks. Weak. Unable to protect myself. Dead weight. She met Jackson's eyes. I need to handle this myself. How? Frost is one of the most powerful alphas in the territory. You can't fight him. No, Alara agreed, but I can outthink him. She explained her plan. Jackson listened, his expression shifting from doubt to reluctant admiration. That's insane, he said when she finished. That's strategy. You could die. I could. Alara felt something fierce and certain settle in her chest. But I'd rather die trying to be strong than live knowing I stayed weak because it was safer. Jackson studied her for a long moment. Then he smiled a real smile, not his usual hard-edged smirk. Your father would be proud. Hell, I'm proud. He pulled a training knife from his belt. All right. If you're going to do this, we prepare. Now. You've got until dawn. They trained through the night. Not the brutal physical drills of before, but something else. Tactics, strategy, how to use terrain, how to exploit an opponent's arrogance, how to turn weakness into advantage. Frost thinks you're nothing, Jackson said as they worked. Use that. Let him underestimate you right up until the moment you prove him wrong. By the time dawn broke, Alara was exhausted but ready. Last chance to back out, Jackson said. I'm not backing out. Good. He gripped her shoulder. Then go win. The final morning of the Alpha Summit arrived with gray skies that promised rain. Alara dressed in simple clothes, worn jeans, a plain shirt, and made her way to the great hall where the closing ceremonies would take place. All the visiting alphas would be there, giving final speeches, making final alliances, and Frost would make his move. Alara was certain of it. She found Theodore in the library, preparing documents. I need your help, she said. Theodore looked up, his ancient eyes sharp. I assume this involves doing something extraordinarily dangerous and probably stupid. Definitely. Excellent. Tell me, she explained. Theodore listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then, you understand that if this fails, you'll likely die? Yes. And you understand that even if it succeeds you might still lose Cade? That proving you're strong doesn't guarantee he'll want you? Yes. Theodore nodded slowly. Then I'll help. Because you're right, Frost needs to be stopped. And because, he smiled, because I've lived 200 years, and I've never seen an Omega challenge an Alpha before. I want to witness history. The closing ceremony began at noon. The great hall was packed. Every Alpha, every Beta, every high-ranking wolf from every visiting pack. They sat in formal rows, facing a raised platform where Alpha Dominic stood with the Summit Council 5 senior alphas who oversaw territorial law. Cade sat in the front row, his expression neutral. But Alara could feel him through the bond tense, watchful. Waiting for something. Frost sat 3 rows back, surrounded by his allies. His pale eyes tracked Cade with predatory focus. The speeches began. Boring political rhetoric about unity and strength and protecting the territory. Alara barely heard them. She was watching Frost, waiting for the moment. It came when Alpha Dominic opened the floor for challenges and grievances, a formal tradition where any Alpha could air disputes. Frost stood. I have a grievance, he announced, his voice carrying across the hall. The room went silent. Against whom? Dominic asked carefully. Against Alpha Cade Blackwood. Every eye turned to Cade, who remained perfectly still. State your grievance, Dominic said. Frost's smile was sharp as broken glass. Alpha Cade has shown weakness. He rejected his true mate, a gift from the moon goddess, out of fear. He's paralyzed by his father's mistakes, unable to make the hard choices our territory needs. And last night, he allowed his rejected mate to interfere in political matters she has no business touching. He paused for effect. I believe Alpha Cade is unfit to lead the Blackwood pack. I challenge him for the position. Gasps rippled through the hall. Alpha challenges were rare and brutal. Fights to the death or submission. The winner took everything: pack, territory, power. Cade rose slowly from his seat. You challenge me? I do. On what grounds? Weakness, indecision, compromised judgment due to an unresolved mate bond. Frost gestured broadly. You're a liability, Cade, and I'm offering to relieve you of a burden you clearly can't handle. The words were calculated, designed to provoke. Cade's expression never changed. I accept your challenge. More gasps. Dominic stepped forward. The challenge will take place at sunset. Traditional rules. Shifted combat. No weapons. Fight until death or submission. His eyes were grave. Both parties have until then to prepare. The ceremony dissolved into chaos, wolves whispering, arguing, taking sides. Elara didn't move. Couldn't move. Because Cade was looking at her across the hall, and his expression said, "This is because of you." She found him an hour later in the forest behind the pack house, running through combat forms. I'm sorry, she said. Cade didn't stop moving. Strike, block, dodge. His body was a weapon, honed and deadly. For what? For interfering last night. For giving Frost ammunition against you. For saving my life? Cade stopped, breathing hard. Don't apologize for that. But the challenge was coming anyway. Frost has been building toward this all summit. Last night just gave him a convenient excuse. Cade turned to face her. This isn't your fault, Elara. Then whose fault is it? Mine, for being exactly what he said. Weak, indecisive, compromised. Cade's hands curled into fists. He's right. You know, I am paralyzed by my father's mistakes. I've spent 10 years trying not to become him. And in the process, I became something worse. An alpha too afraid to trust his own instincts. You're not weak, Elara said fiercely. You're careful, there's a difference. Is there? He moved closer. I rejected you because I was afraid. Afraid of the mate bond. Afraid of becoming my father. Afraid of caring about someone more than my duty. That's not careful. That's cowardice. The words hung between them. I have something to tell you, Elara said. About tonight. About Frost. She explained her plan. Cade listened, his expression shifting from confusion to disbelief to something that might have been horror. Absolutely not, he said when she finished. It's the only way. It's suicide. You're asking to fight an alpha. You barely know how to shift properly. I'm not asking to fight him. I'm asking to challenge his legitimacy. Elara stepped closer. Frost built his challenge on the claim that you're weak because of our mate bond. But what if I prove the bond makes you stronger? What if I show everyone that I'm not a liability, I'm an asset? By doing what? Getting yourself killed? By challenging Frost myself. Before your fight. Cade stared at her. That's insane. That's strategy. Elara grabbed his hands. Listen to me. If I challenge Frost and lose, you look like an alpha with a brave mate willing to defend him. If I challenge and win, you won't win. Then I'll lose in a way that makes Frost look like a monster for fighting an Omega. Either way, it damages his credibility, makes his challenge look less righteous and more political. She squeezed his hands. But Cade, I don't plan to lose. How can you possibly? Because I'm smarter than him, faster than him, and I'm fighting for something he can't understand. Not power, not territory, but the right to be seen as more than what I was born as. Her voice cracked. Let me do this. Let me prove I'm worth keeping. Cade pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. The mate bond sang between them, desperate and bright and terrified. You're already worth keeping, he whispered. That's what I realized last night. You're smart and brave and you see things I miss. You saved me from Frost. You challenged me to be better. You're everything I didn't know I needed. His hands framed her face. I was going to tell you this morning. I was wrong. About everything. You're not too weak to be my Luna. I was too scared to deserve you. Tears burned Alara's eyes. What are you saying? I'm saying I want to accept the mate bond. Claim you properly. Make you my Luna. His voice was raw. But not like this. Not with you throwing yourself at a hostile alpha to prove something you don't need to prove. I need to prove it to myself, Alara said. My whole life, people have told me I'm nothing, weak, less than, and I believed them. But these last 3 days, I've learned something. Strength isn't just claws and teeth, it's courage, strategy, choosing to fight even when the odds are impossible. She met his eyes. Let me fight, Cade. Not for you. For me. He pulled back, conflict warring in his expression. Then slowly he nodded. All right, he said. But we do this smart, together, as mates, as mates. Alara agreed. And for the first time since the rejection, Cade leaned down and kissed her. The mate bond exploded between them, golden and fierce and complete. Every nerve ending sang. Her wolf howled in triumph. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. I, Cade Blackwood, he said formally, his voice resonating with alpha power. Revoke my rejection. I claim Alara Kane as my true mate and future Luna. Witnessed by the moon goddess herself, the bond snapped fully into place, whole and unbreakable. Alara gasped as power flooded through her, not her own, but Cade's, shared through the mate bond. Strength, speed, the full force of an alpha's will flowing into her veins. Now, Cade said, his eyes blazing gold with wolf. Let's go show Frost what happens when he threatens my mate. Chapter 8. The Challenge. The challenge grounds were an ancient circle of stones deep in Silverpine territory. Alara had heard stories about this place where disputes were settled, where dominance was proven, where wolves fought and sometimes died for honor and power. The stones were weathered by centuries, stained with old blood, humming with pack magic. By the time sunset painted the sky crimson, hundreds of wolves had gathered. Every visiting alpha and their entourages, every Silverpine pack member, warriors and omegas, and everyone in between. They formed a massive ring around the challenge circle, watching with hungry eyes. Violence, Alara realized, was entertainment when it wasn't happening to you. She stood at the edge of the circle with Cade, Jackson, and Theodore. She'd changed into fighting clothes, flexible pants, a fitted shirt, boots with good traction. Theodore had braided her hair tight against her skull so it couldn't be grabbed. Last chance, Jackson said quietly. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. Across the circle, Frost stood with his beta and a cluster of allied wolves. He was already stripped to the waist, muscles rippling, looking every inch the predator he was. His pale eyes found Alara, and he smiled, cold and sharp. He didn't think she was a threat. Good. Alpha Dominic stepped into the center of the circle, his voice amplified by pack magic so everyone could hear. We gather to witness a challenge. Alpha Theron Frost of the Frost Pack has challenged Alpha Cade Blackwood of the Blackwood Pack for leadership. The combat will be... Wait. Alara's voice cut through the announcement. Every eye turned to her. She stepped forward into the circle, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. But she kept her voice steady. I invoke the right of first challenge. Silence. Complete and absolute. Then whispers erupted like wildfire. What is she doing? An Omega can't challenge. She'll be killed. Dominic's expression was carefully neutral. Alara Kane. You understand what you're invoking? I do. Alara forced herself to meet his eyes. Ancient law states that when an alpha is challenged, their mate has the right to fight in their place, to prove the bond's strength, to defend their mate's honor. That law is archaic, Frost called out. It hasn't been used in over 100 years. But it still stands. Theodore's voice rang out. He stepped forward holding an ancient leather tome. I have the law books right here. The right of first challenge is valid. If Alara Kane wishes to fight in Alpha Cade's place, she has that right. Frost's smile turned predatory. Fine. I accept. I'll kill the Omega first, then take the Alpha. More entertaining that way. Alara's wolf snarled, but she pushed the rage down. Emotions wouldn't win this. Strategy would. Cade gripped her arm, pulling her aside. You don't have to kill him, he said urgently. Just survive. Make him look bad. Then I'll handle the actual challenge. I know the plan. Alara. His hands framed her face. Come back to me. She kissed him quick and fierce. I will. I promise. Then she stepped into the circle. Dominic explained the rules. Shifted combat only. No weapons. No interference from spectators. Fight until death, submission, or incapacitation. His eyes moved between Alara and Frost. Both parties understand? Perfectly. Frost purred. Alara nodded, not trusting her voice. Then shift. And begin on my mark. Alara closed her eyes and reached for her wolf. The shift came easier now. 3 days of constant practice had made it almost smooth. Her bones reformed, fur sprouted, and she stood on 4 legs. Small, gray, unremarkable. Frost shifted across from her, a massive white wolf with pale blue eyes that gleamed with malice. He was easily 3 times her size. The crowd murmured. Some pitying, some excited, all expecting her to die. Begin. Dominic's voice cracked like a whip. Frost lunged. Alara didn't try to meet his charge, that would be suicide. Instead, she did what Jackson had trained her to do. She moved, darted left, low to the ground, using her smaller size to slip under Frost's attack. His jaws snapped on empty air where she'd been a heartbeat before. The crowd gasped. Frost spun, faster than something his size should be able to move, and lunged again. Alara dodged right, then forward, staying close to his body where his larger frame couldn't get proper leverage. She raked her claws across his flank, not deep, just enough to sting. First blood to her. Frost's snarl shook the air. He twisted, trying to catch her, but she was already gone, circling, staying just out of reach. Stop running. Frost's voice came through the mental pack link, audible to everyone watching. Fight like a wolf, not prey. Alara didn't respond, didn't need to. She was fighting exactly like she'd planned, smart, not strong. They circled each other. The crowd was silent now, watching with growing disbelief. The Omega was holding her own. Not winning, but not dying either. Frost changed tactics. Instead of lunging, he advanced slowly, cutting off her escape routes, backing her toward the stone circle's edge, where she'd have nowhere to run. Alara let him. Let him think he was hurting her. When her back was 3 feet from the stones, Frost struck a massive pounce that should have crushed her. Alara dropped flat, and Frost sailed over her. His momentum carried him into the stones with a sickening crack. He recovered quickly, but not before Alara saw it. He was favoring his left front leg. The impact had hurt him. She filed the information away. They clashed again. And again. Alara scored hits when she could, quick slashes that drew blood, but nothing fatal. Frost landed fewer hits, but each one counted more. His teeth grazed her shoulder, his claws caught her hindquarters. Pain blazed, but she pushed through it. 5 minutes became 10. 10 became 15. The crowd's murmuring grew louder. This wasn't supposed to be a fight, it was supposed to be an execution. But the Omega was still standing. Frost was getting frustrated. Alara could see it in his movements, the way he started taking risks, getting sloppy. Perfect. She baited him, fake stumbling, showing weakness. Frost took it, lunging with his full weight. Alara twisted at the last second and sank her teeth into his injured left leg. Frost howled, thrashed, caught her with his back claws and sent her flying. Alara hit the ground hard, the air driven from her lungs. Pain exploded through her ribs. She tasted blood. Get up, her wolf screamed. Get up. She got up. Frost was limping now, his left leg barely supporting weight. But he was still massive, still deadly. I'm going to enjoy this, he snarled through the pack link. Killing you slowly. Making your mate watch. Showing everyone what happens to Omegas who forget their place. My place, Alara said, her first words of the fight, projected through the link for everyone to hear, is wherever I choose to stand. She shifted. Mid-combat, mid-fight, breaking every rule of wolf combat. But there were no rules against it. And she'd been practicing. The shift was agonizing damaged ribs, screaming in protest, but she forced it through. And she shifted into human form, holding something. The training knife Jackson had given her last night, strapped to her thigh under fur. Wolves couldn't hold weapons. But humans could. The crowd erupted in shouts. That's cheating. No weapons. But Theodore's voice cut through. The rules state no weapons. But a knife carried as part of her shift, part of her person, is not a weapon brought into the circle. It's a tool. Legal, under ancient law. Dominic's lips twitched. Almost a smile. Legal, he confirmed. Frost shifted to human, rage contorting his handsome features. You manipulative little. Alara threw the knife, not at Frost. At the ground between them. Pick it up, she said. Fight me as humans. Equal ground. The crowd went silent, because what she was offering was insane. Humans couldn't heal like wolves. A knife fight between humans often meant death, real death. Frost's eyes gleamed. You're serious? Completely. He picked up the knife, and the real fight began. Human combat was different than wolf combat. No enhanced strength, no supernatural speed. Just skill, instinct, and the willingness to hurt and be hurt. Frost was bigger, stronger, more experienced. But Alara was desperate. They circled each other. Frost lunged a slash aimed at her throat. Alara blocked with her forearm, feeling the blade bite deep. Blood poured, but she ignored it. She kicked hard at his injured left leg. Frost buckled, and Alara drove her elbow into his face. Bone crunched. Frost's nose broke, blood pouring. They broke apart, both breathing hard, both bleeding. Not bad, Frost admitted. For an Omega. Stop calling me that, Alara said. Like it means something. It means everything. Frost attacked again, faster this time, brutal combinations that drove Alara back. The knife slashed across her shoulder, her side, her thigh. Pain bloomed everywhere, but she got her hits in too. Caught his knife hand and twisted until something popped. Not broken, but damaged. They were killing each other by inches. The crowd watched in horrified silence. This wasn't entertainment anymore. This was carnage. Submit. Cade's voice tore through the night. She could feel his panic through the bond, his desperate need for her to stop. Alara, please, submit. But she couldn't. Because submitting meant Frost would fight Cade next. Meant Cade would have to kill him. Meant her mate would have blood on his hands because she'd failed. No. She gasped. Frost's eyes widened. You're actually insane. Maybe. They clashed again. Alara was slower now, weaker from blood loss. Frost caught her wrist, twisted, and the knife flew from her grip. She was disarmed. Defenseless. Frost raised the blade for the killing blow. And Alara did the only thing she could. She shifted. Partial shift. Just her hand. Claws erupted from her fingers, and she slashed not at Frost, but at her own arm, deepening the cut he'd already made, making it pour blood. Then she pressed the bleeding wound against his face, his eyes, blinding him with her own blood. Frost screamed, stumbling back, clawing at his eyes. Alara shifted fully to wolf and lunged teeth, finding his throat. Not to kill, to hold. She had him. One wrong move, and she could rip his throat out. The entire circle held its breath. Submit, Alara said through the pack link, her voice distorted by the teeth at his throat. Or die. Frost was absolutely still. Blood his and hers pooled beneath them. For a long moment, Alara thought he'd choose death. Then, I submit. The words echoed through the pack link. Alara released him and stumbled back, shifting to human. She collapsed to her knees, blood pouring from a dozen wounds, vision tunneling. But she'd won. An Omega had defeated an Alpha. Dominic's voice rang out. The challenge is ended. Alara Kane is victorious. Frost's claim against Alpha Cade is void. The crowd exploded into chaos, shouting, arguing, some cheering. Alara heard none of it. Because Cade was there, catching her as she fell. His hands gentle despite their strength. You insane, brilliant, terrifying woman, he whispered. I won. She mumbled against his chest. You won. Darkness pulled at her. Blood loss and exhaustion and pain. But before she slipped under, she felt it. The mate bond, whole and bright and unbreakable, singing between them like coming home. She woke in the pack house medical wing. Soft bed, clean sheets, bandages wrapped around what felt like her entire body. Everything hurt. But it was the good kind of hurt, the kind that meant she was alive. "You're awake." Cade sat in a chair beside her bed, looking haggard. Like he hadn't slept. His hand held hers, careful of the IV line. "How long?" Alara's voice was rough. 18 hours. "You lost a lot of blood," the pack healers said. His voice cracked. "They said you almost didn't make it. But I did." "But you did." He raised her hand to his lips. "You're the strongest wolf I've ever met. And the most terrifying." Alara smiled weakly. "Did Frost leave?" "Yes. After his beta dragged him to the healers. He's alive, but..." Cade's expression was grim. "He lost more than the challenge. He lost respect. Every alpha here watched an omega defeat him. He'll never live it down." "Good. The summit ended this morning. Every pack is talking about you. The omega who fought like a Luna." Cade's thumb stroked across her knuckles. "You're famous. Or infamous. Hard to tell which." "I don't care about famous." Alara squeezed his hand. "I care about you. About us." "Us," Cade repeated. "I like the sound of that." He leaned forward, his forehead resting against hers. "I was wrong about everything, Alara. You're not too weak. You were never too weak. I was just too scared to see your strength. And now? Now I'm still scared, but I'm more scared of losing you." His eyes met hers, forest dark and completely open. "Be my Luna. Not because you proved yourself, but because I can't imagine anyone else beside me. Because you make me better. Stronger. Braver." Tears slipped down Alara's cheeks. "Yes. Yes? Yes, I'll be your Luna." She pulled him down and kissed him gentle because everything hurt but real. "On one condition." "Name it." "When we get to Blackwood, I get to keep training. With real warriors. I want to be strong enough that no one ever doubts my place beside you." Cade laughed, a real laugh, bright and free. "Done. Though after yesterday, I don't think anyone will doubt you ever again." He kissed her again, deeper this time. And the mate bond sang between them, golden and unbreakable, and finally right. Chapter 9. The Aftermath. 3 days of recovery passed in a blur of pain medication, healing sleep, and Cade's constant presence. He barely left her side, sleeping in the uncomfortable chair beside her bed, holding her hand through nightmares, changing bandages with gentle hands that seemed impossible for someone so deadly. The pack healers clucked their tongues and muttered about hovering alphas, but Alara didn't mind. For the first time in her life, someone was choosing to stay. On the morning of the 4th day, she was finally strong enough to walk. Cade helped her to the window, supporting most of her weight, and Alara looked out over Silver Pine territory. The visiting alphas were long gone. The pack house had returned to its normal rhythm, but something fundamental had shifted. She could feel it in the way pack members looked at her now. Not with contempt or pity, but with something that looked almost like respect. "They're calling you the Grey Wolf," Cade said, following her gaze. "The Omega who defeated an alpha. Stories are already spreading to other territories. I didn't defeat him to become famous. I know. You did it to protect me." His arms wrapped around her from behind, careful of her healing wounds. Which is exactly what a Luna does. Protects her mate, protects her pack, even when it costs her everything. Alara leaned back against his chest, breathing in pine and winter. "When do we leave for Blackwood?" "Whenever you're ready. Tomorrow. Next week. Never, if you'd rather stay here." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "I know leaving your birth pack is difficult. I won't rush you. There's nothing keeping me here." The words came out more bitter than she intended. "My mother made her choice years ago. Vivienne." She trailed off. "Vivienne came to see you," Cade said quietly. "While you were unconscious. The healers sent her away, but she left something." He handed Alara a folded piece of paper. Inside, in Vivienne's perfect handwriting, "I was wrong about you, I'm sorry, V." 4 words. Not much. But from Vivienne, it was everything. "I'm ready to leave," Alara said, folding the note carefully. Silver Pine was never really my home, just the place I survived. I want to go somewhere I can actually live. Then we leave tomorrow. Cade turned her gently to face him. But there's something you need to know first. About Blackwood Pack. About what you're walking into. His expression was serious, almost worried. Tell me. They sat on the bed, Cade helping Alara settle against the pillows, and he told her about Blackwood Pack. It's not like Silver Pine, he began. Blackwood is harder, colder. We live on the northern edge of the territory, right against the mountain range. Winters last 8 months. The terrain is brutal, and the pack. He paused, choosing words carefully. They've been shaped by that harshness. They value strength above everything. Are you trying to scare me? I'm trying to prepare you. Cade took her hand. When I rejected you at the summit, it wasn't just about my father's history. It was about Blackwood's culture. They won't accept weakness in a Luna. And when they hear I've chosen an Omega mate, he met her eyes. Some will challenge it. Maybe challenge you directly. Let them. Elera. I fought an alpha and won. I can handle whatever Blackwood throws at me. She squeezed his hand. What else? What aren't you telling me? Cade was quiet for a moment. Then, my mother. Celeste. She's still alive. Still lives in the pack house. Alara's stomach dropped. The Luna your father rejected for an Omega? Yes. Cade's jaw tightened. She raised me after everything fell apart. Taught me to lead. She's complicated. Strong and bitter and brilliant. And when she hears about you... He trailed off. She'll hate me. She'll see you as history repeating. As proof that the moon goddess has a cruel sense of humor. Cade's thumb stroked across Alara's knuckles. But here's the thing. Celeste respects strength. If you show her you're not Isla, that you're not weak or helpless, or going to get the pack killed, she might accept you. Eventually. And if she doesn't, then we deal with it. Together. He pulled Alara close, mindful of her injuries. You're my Luna. My mate. Anyone who can't accept that even my mother will have to get over it or leave. Alara felt the absolute conviction in his words through the mate bond. He meant it. He'd choose her over his own mother if it came to that. The realization was both terrifying and beautiful. What about your pack? She asked. Your beta, your warriors, how will they react? My beta Garrett is practical. He'll judge you on results, not rank. If you prove you can lead, he'll follow. Cade's expression darkened. The warriors, mixed. Some will respect what you did at the summit. Others will see it as a fluke. You'll have to prove yourself again, and again, until they stop testing you. So basically I get to fight for the rest of my life? Yes. No sugarcoating. Just honesty. Being Luna to Blackwood isn't easy. It's not grand balls and pretty dresses. It's brutal winters and hard decisions, and wolves who'll question your every move. I can't promise it'll be happy or comfortable or anything like the stories make it sound. What can you promise? Cade cupped her face, his eyes burning with intensity. That I'll stand beside you. That I'll fight for you as hard as you fought for me. That every day, I'll choose you. Even when it's difficult. Even when my pack questions me. Even when it would be easier to give up. His voice dropped to a whisper. I can promise that you'll never be alone again. That's all I've got. Tears burned Alara's eyes. That's enough. That's everything. They kissed slow and deep and full of promises they'd spend a lifetime keeping. Her mother came that evening. Diana stood in the doorway of the medical room, looking older than Alara remembered. Tired. Like something inside her had finally broken. May I come in? She asked quietly. Alara nodded, not trusting her voice. Diana entered, closing the door behind her. She carried a small wooden box that Alara recognized her father's memory box. The one Diana kept locked in her bedroom. I've been unfair to you, Diana said, without preamble. She sat in the chair Cade had vacated, the box on her lap. Your whole life, I've treated you like you were less than Vivienne. Less than what I wanted. Less than enough. Mother, let me finish. Diana's hands trembled slightly on the box. When your father died, something broke in me. He was Omega. Yes. But he was also the strongest wolf I ever knew. He died saving an Alpha. Died honorably. And the pack barely acknowledged it because he was just an Omega. Her voice cracked. I couldn't protect him from that prejudice. Couldn't make them see his worth. So I married Beta William, gave Vivienne every advantage, and I tried to make you invisible. Tried to keep you small and quiet so the pack wouldn't notice you, wouldn't hurt you the way they'd dismissed your father. Tears slipped down Diana's face. But all I did was hurt you myself, made you think you were worthless, made you believe the lies everyone told about Omegas. She opened the box with shaking hands. Inside were small treasures, a worn bracelet, a bundle of letters, a photograph of a young man with Alara's eyes. Your father, Diana whispered, touching the photograph, would be so proud of you. What you did at the summit fighting an Alpha, proving that rank doesn't define strength, that's exactly what he would have done, what he did do. She pulled out a letter, yellowed with age, and handed it to Alara. He wrote this the day you were born, made me promise to give it to you when you were old enough to understand. Alara's hands trembled as she unfolded the letter. Her father's handwriting neat and careful. My dearest Alara, if you're reading this, I'm probably gone. Omegas who protect Alphas rarely live long lives. But I want you to know something important. Being Omega doesn't mean being weak. It means being necessary in ways Alphas don't understand. We're the ones who see clearly, who think instead of just fight, who hold packs together when the strong ones are busy tearing things apart. You'll face wolves who try to make you small, who tell you that your rank defines your worth. Don't believe them. Your worth is in your choices, not your blood. Be brave, little one. Be strong in the ways that matter. And remember, the moon goddess doesn't make mistakes. Whatever path she sets you on, walk it with your head high. I love you. Always. Father. Alara couldn't see through the tears. Diana took her hand. I'm sorry. For everything. For making you feel invisible. For not protecting you the way your father would have wanted. For not seeing your strength until you had to prove it by nearly dying. I forgive you, Alara whispered, because holding grudges took energy she didn't have, because her father's letter had reminded her that anger was a choice, and she was choosing differently now. Diana pulled her into a careful hug, mindful of healing injuries. Be happy in Blackwood. Be the Luna your father knew you could be. And Alara? She pulled back, meeting her daughter's eyes. Come visit. Sometimes, when you can. I'd like to know the woman you're becoming. I will. Alara promised. After Diana left, Alara sat alone with her father's letter, reading it over and over until the words burned into her heart. The moon goddess doesn't make mistakes. No. She didn't. The next morning, Alara stood in the packhouse courtyard, dressed in travel clothes, her few belongings packed in a single bag. Cade waited beside a sleek black SUV, talking quietly with Alpha Dominic. When he saw Alara emerge, his face lit up in a way that made her chest ache. Ready? He asked, taking her bag. Ready. Delta Jackson appeared from the training grounds, his scarred face creased in what might have been a smile. Leaving without saying goodbye? I was going to. Relax. I'm teasing. He pulled her into a careful hug. You did good, kid. Better than good. You showed every wolf in this territory that rank doesn't mean shit compared to heart. I learned from the best. Damn right you did. Jackson stepped back, his eyes serious. Blackwood is going to test you. Hard. But you've got this. Just remember. Strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it whispers. I'll remember. Gamma Theodore was next, his ancient eyes twinkling. The gray wolf rides north. There's poetry in that. There's insanity in that. Alara corrected. Often the same thing. Theodore pressed a leather-bound journal into her hands. Blackwood's pack history. Read it. Learn it. Know your new home better than they expect. He lowered his voice. And when Celeste challenges you, not if, when remember, she's not your enemy. She's a wounded Luna, protecting old scars. Treat her with respect, but don't let her break you. Thank you. For everything. Thank me by being extraordinary. By proving that Omegas belong in leadership just as much as Alphas. Theodore's gnarled hand squeezed hers. Make your father proud. I will. Vivienne appeared last, hesitant and uncomfortable. She and Alara stared at each other for a long moment. I'm sorry, Vivienne said finally. For all of it, the cruelty, the competitions I created in my head, the way I made you feel small so I could feel big. She took a shaky breath. You were always stronger than me. I just couldn't admit it. You're not weak, Vivienne. You're just lost. Still figuring out who you are beyond being Beta Williams' daughter. Elara surprised herself by pulling her stepsister into a hug. Find yourself. Not the version everyone expects. The real one. Vivienne hugged back, fierce and brief. Be safe. And if that alpha ever hurts you, I'll kill him myself. Elara laughed, genuine and bright. Deal. The drive north took 6 hours. Elara watched Silverpine territory disappear in the rearview mirror, feeling something complicated settle in her chest. Not quite grief. Not quite relief. Just closure. You all right? Cade asked, his hand finding hers across the console. Yeah. I think I am. The landscape changed as they drove gentler forests giving way to rocky terrain, mountains rising in the distance like ancient sentinels. The air grew colder. Sharper. This was Blackwood territory. Harsh and beautiful and unforgiving. As they crested a final hill, the Blackwood pack house came into view. It wasn't like Silverpine's warm, sprawling building. This was a fortress stone and timber, built into the mountainside itself, designed to withstand sieges and brutal winters. Wolves moved through the courtyard below, training even in the fading light. Home, Cade said softly. Then to her, our home. Elara felt the weight of what she was walking into. The challenges ahead. The wolves who'd test her. The Luna who hated what she represented. But she also felt Cade's hand in hers, felt the mate bond singing between them, felt her father's letter folded in her pocket like a talisman. She was Elara Kane. The Grey Wolf. The Omega, who defeated an Alpha. And she was ready. Let's go home, she said. Cade smiled, wild and fierce and full of pride. And together, they drove toward their future. Chapter 10. The Luna Rises. The Blackwood pack house was even more intimidating up close. Massive wooden doors reinforced with iron. Windows like watchful eyes. Wolves everywhere training in the courtyard, patrolling the perimeter, moving with military precision that spoke of constant vigilance. These weren't soft, comfortable pack wolves. These were warriors. The SUV rolled to a stop, and immediately, wolves converged. Not threatening, but assessing. Sizing up their alpha's return. And his unexpected mate. Cade squeezed Elara's hand once. Ready? No. But let's do this anyway. They stepped out together. The first wolf to approach was massive, easily as large as Cade, with gray-shot hair and eyes that had seen too much violence. He moved with the casual confidence of someone who'd earned his rank through blood. Alpha, he said, nodding to Cade. Then his gaze shifted to Elara. This is her? Beta Garrett. Meet Luna Elara Kane. Cade's voice carried that alpha resonance that made wolves straighten unconsciously. My mate. You're Luna. Garrett studied Elara with uncomfortable intensity. She forced herself not to fidget, not to look away. After a long moment, he said, Heard you fought Theron Frost at the summit. Beat him. I did. An Omega, beating an Alpha. That's... Garrett paused, choosing his words. Unprecedented. So I've been told. Garrett, Cade said quietly. A warning. I'm not questioning her, Alpha. I'm stating facts. Garrett's expression was unreadable. Facts are. She's Omega-born. Facts are. She fought Frost and won. Facts are. She's your mate. He looked at Elara again. What I need to know is, can you lead warriors, make hard calls, do what needs doing even when it hurts? I don't know, Elara said honestly. I've never tried, but I'm willing to learn. Something flickered through Garrett's expression. Respect, maybe. Fair answer. He stepped aside. Welcome to Blackwood, Luna. Try not to die. We've had enough tragedy with Lunas. It wasn't warm. But it wasn't hostile. Elara would take it. Other wolves approached warriors, introducing themselves with names Elara tried desperately to remember. Delta Sienna, a scarred female who looked at Elara like she was a puzzle to solve. Gamma Harrison, ancient and weathered like Theodore but harder. Young warriors whose names blurred together. All of them watched her, judged her, waited to see what she was made of. Then the crowd parted, and Celeste emerged. Celeste Blackwood was beautiful in the way ice sculptures were beautiful, cold and perfect and untouchable. She had to be in her 50s, but looked ageless. Silver blonde hair pulled back severely, pale gray eyes that missed nothing. She moved with the absolute confidence of someone who'd been Luna, lost everything, and clawed her way back to relevance through sheer will. "Cade," she said. Her voice was cultured, controlled. "Welcome home, Mother." Cade's hand tightened on Alara's. "I'd like you to meet your Omega mate." "Yes. The entire territory has heard." Celeste's eyes raked over Alara, clinical and cold. "The Grey Wolf. The one who defeated Theron Frost." She tilted her head. "Tell me, child, did you fight him to protect my son, or to prove something to yourself?" The question was a trap. Alara knew it instinctively. "Both," she said honestly. "I fought to protect Cade. But I also fought to prove I'm more than my rank. That Omega doesn't mean worthless. Omega means weak." Celeste's words were precise as scalpels. "It means unsuited for leadership. It means different." Alara stepped forward, ignoring Cade's warning squeeze on her hand. "Your mate Darius chose an Omega named Isla. She failed because she had no training, no preparation, no support. She was thrust into a role she didn't understand, and people died." Celeste's expression went glacial. "But I'm not Isla," Alara continued. "I've trained. I've learned strategy and politics and combat. I've proven I can fight. And more importantly," she met Celeste's ice-gray eyes, "I know my limitations. I know I'll never be the strongest fighter or the most dominant wolf. But I can think, I can plan. I can see problems before they become disasters. And I can make Cade stronger instead of weaker." Silence stretched across the courtyard. Every wolf watched, holding their breath. Celeste studied Alara for a long, excruciating moment. Then she smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. But it was real. "You have spine," she said. "That's good, you'll need it here." She turned to Cade. "She's yours to guide. If she fails, it's your failure as much as hers. If she succeeds—" A pause. "Well, that would be interesting." She walked away, leaving Alara shaking but standing. Cade pulled her close. "You just survived, Celeste. That's half the battle. What's the other half?" "Everything else." The packhouse interior was as harsh as its exterior stone walls, minimal decoration, built for function over comfort. Cade led Alara through corridors that felt more like a military barracks than a home. "This is us," he said, opening a heavy wooden door. The Alpha suite was massive, high ceilings, a fireplace large enough to stand in, windows overlooking the mountain range, furniture that was expensive but austere. It felt like a general's quarters, not a home. "I know it's not warm," Cade said, misreading her expression. "But you can change whatever you want. Add things. Make it yours." "Ours," Alara corrected. "Make it ours." He pulled her into a kiss deep and claiming and full of relief that they'd finally arrived. The mate bond sang between them, golden and perfect. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. "I need to tell you something," Cade said, "before tonight's pack meeting." Alara's stomach dropped. Pack meeting. Standard procedure when a new Luna arrives. The whole pack gathers. You're introduced formally. Make a speech. He saw her panic. "You don't have to. I can announce you myself. But it would be better if I spoke. Proved I can lead." Alara's mind raced. "What do I say?" "The truth. Who you are, why you're here, why they should follow you." Cade cupped her face. "But Alara, some of them won't accept you. Some will challenge you verbally, politically, maybe even physically. Blackwood doesn't do gentle transitions." "Are you trying to scare me?" "I'm trying to prepare you. There's a difference." Alara took a shaky breath. "When's the meeting?" "Sunset, 2 hours." Cade's thumb stroked her cheek. "We don't have to do this tonight. We could wait, give you time to settle in." "No." Alara's voice was firmer than she felt. "Waiting makes me look weak. Like I'm afraid. We do this tonight. Pride blazed through the mate bond. That's my Luna. 2 hours later, Alara stood before 300 wolves. The pack meeting hall was underground, a massive cavern carved from the mountain itself, lit by torches that cast dancing shadows on stone walls. Wolves packed the space, sitting on benches arranged in concentric circles, all eyes focused on the raised platform where Cade stood with Alara. Her heart hammered. Her palms were slick with sweat, but she kept her spine straight, her chin up. Cade's introduction was brief and formal. This is Alara Kane, my true mate. Your Luna. She comes from Silverpine Pack, Omega-born but proven in combat. She defeated Alpha Theron Frost in single combat at the Alpha Summit. She is strong, intelligent, and mine. Any challenge to her is a challenge to me. His words echoed in the cavern. Then he stepped back, leaving Alara alone at the platform's edge. She looked out at 300 skeptical, hostile, curious faces. Speak, her wolf urged. Show them. Alara took a breath and began. I know what you're thinking. An Omega Luna. It's unprecedented. Probably stupid. Maybe disastrous. She let the words hang. You're right to doubt. If I were you, I'd doubt too. Omega doesn't exactly scream leadership material. A few wolves shifted uncomfortably. Good. She had their attention. But here's what I learned at Silverpine, and what I proved at the summit. Rank doesn't determine strength. Choices do. Actions do. She stepped forward to the platform's edge. I'm not the strongest wolf here. I'll never win a straight fight against most of you. But I can think. I can plan. I can see 3 moves ahead and solve problems before they become disasters. Her eyes found Celeste in the crowd. The former Luna watched with inscrutable expression. I know Blackwood has suffered under weak leadership before. I know what happened with Isla. Gasps rippled through the crowd at the forbidden name. And I know why you're scared. Why Cade was scared. Why bringing another Omega into leadership feels like history repeating. Alara's voice dropped, became something fierce and certain. But I'm not Isla. I'm not unprepared or untrained or helpless. I fought an Alpha and won. I saved Cade from an assassination attempt he didn't see coming, and I will protect this pack, our pack, with everything I have. Even if that means dying for it. She let the silence stretch. I'm not asking you to trust me blindly. I'm asking you to judge me on results. Give me a chance to prove what I can do. And if I fail... She met Celeste's eyes across the cavern. If I fail, you can remove me, challenge me, do whatever Blackwood law allows. But give me the chance first. Another silence. Longer this time. Then a voice from the crowd, Delta Sienna. What makes you think you can lead warriors? Plan strategy? You're 3 days old as a wolf. You're right. I can't. Not yet. Alara didn't flinch from the truth. But I can learn. I have a warrior's training from Silverpine. I have political knowledge. And why? And I'm smart enough to know when to ask for help instead of pretending I know everything. Pretty words. Another voice, a young male warrior. But words don't fight rogues. What happens when we're attacked and our Luna can't defend herself? Then I get creative. Use strategy instead of strength. Fight smart instead of hard. Alara's eyes found the young warrior. But more importantly, I won't be fighting alone. That's what packs are for. Supporting each other. Using our different strengths to cover each other's weaknesses. More voices now. Questions. Challenges. Some hostile, some genuinely curious. Alara answered them all. Honestly. Without pretense. Finally, Garrett stood. The beta's voice cut through the noise. I have a question for the Luna. The hall went silent. What's your greatest weakness? It was a trap. Any answer could be used against her. Alara met his eyes. I care too much. I'll make decisions based on protecting wolves I love instead of cold strategy. It'll make me vulnerable. It'll make me hurt when people die. It'll make me human instead of perfectly rational. She paused. But it also means I'll fight like hell to keep you all alive. Even the ones who hate me. Garrett stared at her. Then, slowly, he nodded. Good answer. He sat down. Celeste stood next. The former Luna's voice carried absolute authority. I have something to say. Every wolf turned to her. I've watched 3 Lunas try to lead Blackwood. My predecessor was strong but cruel. I tried to be firm but fair. Isla. Celeste's voice cracked, just slightly. Isla tried to be kind but had no strength to back it up. People died because of her kindness. She looked at Alara. You're Omega-born, like Isla. And every instinct I have says this is a disaster waiting to happen. Celeste's pause was painful. But I also watched you stand here and answer hostile questions with honesty instead of defensiveness. Watched you admit weakness instead of pretending perfection. And I think, another pause, I think perhaps kindness backed by spine is exactly what this pack needs. Gasps echoed through the cavern. I'm not saying I trust you, Celeste continued. I'm saying I'm willing to give you a chance. One chance. Don't waste it. She sat down. The hall erupted into conversation, wolves arguing, debating, taking sides. Cade's hand found Alara's. His voice in her mind through the mate bond. You did it. Did I? Look. She looked. And saw it. More than half the pack was nodding. Talking about her with something that looked like cautious respect. Not acceptance. Not yet. But not outright rejection either. It was a start. The feast that followed was overwhelming. Long tables, laden with food. Wolves, celebrating. Music and laughter. It should have felt like a victory, but Alara felt the weight of every stare, every whispered conversation, every wolf still deciding whether to give her a chance. Breathe, Cade murmured in her ear. You don't have to win them all tonight. I want to. I know. But leadership is patient. It's earning loyalty day by day, choice by choice. He pulled her onto the dance floor. Similar to the summit ball but smaller, more intimate. Tonight, you gave them hope that maybe an Omega Luna could work. Tomorrow, you start proving it. They danced, and slowly, other wolves joined them. Warriors with their mates, betas and deltas. Even Celeste, dancing with Gamma Harrison, shot Alara a look that might have been approval. As midnight approached, Cade led Alara back to their suite. Welcome home, Luna, he said, pulling her close. It doesn't feel like home yet. It will. Give it time. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. I'm proud of you. What you did tonight, facing down the whole pack, admitting weakness while showing strength, that was incredible. I'm terrified I'll fail them. You won't. His certainty was absolute. Because you care. Because you're willing to learn. Because you're exactly what this pack needs. Even if they don't know it yet. The mate bond flared between them, golden and warm and unbreakable. Alara pressed her face against Cade's chest, feeling his heartbeat, feeling the solid reality of him. Thank you. For what? For giving me a chance. For seeing me when everyone else looked through me. For being brave enough to accept a bond you were terrified of. She pulled back to meet his eyes. For choosing me, always, Cade whispered. Every day, for the rest of our lives, I'll choose you. He kissed her again, deep and claiming, and full of promises. And for the first time since her wolf awakened, since the mate bond snapped into place, since everything changed, Alara finally felt like she was exactly where she belonged. Epilogue. 6 months later. The war room was packed. Alara stood at the head of the table, maps spread before her, markers indicating rogue movements. Around her sat Cade, Garrett, Celeste, the Deltas, and every ranking wolf in Blackwood leadership. The pattern is clear, she said, tracing lines on the map. The rogues aren't random. They're testing our borders here, here, and here. She tapped 3 points, looking for weak spots. Classic flanking strategy. How do we counter? Garrett asked. Not dismissive. Genuinely asking her opinion. Because in 6 months, Alara had proven herself. Not through combat, though she'd continued training, and could now hold her own against most warriors, but through intelligence. She'd predicted 3 rogue attacks before they happened. Had negotiated a trade alliance with a neighboring pack that brought prosperity. Had quietly resolved internal disputes before they became violence. She was becoming the Luna Blackwood needed. We don't defend where they're testing, Alara said. We set a trap. Make it look like this spot. She circled an area on the map. Is vulnerable. When they attack, we're waiting. Cade's pride blazed through the mate bond. Risky, Delta Sienna said. If we're wrong, we're not wrong. Celeste's voice. Unexpected. The former Luna studied the map with sharp eyes. The Luna is right. It's what I'd do in their position. She met Alara's gaze. Good strategy. Coming from Celeste, that was high praise. The meeting continued, but Alara felt something settle in her chest. Belonging. She wasn't just Cade's mate anymore. She was Blackwood's Luna. Their strategist. Their leader. After the meeting, Cade caught her hand. Walk with me? They walked through the pack house to the mountain overlook, a spot that had become theirs over the months. The view stretched for miles, forests giving way to distant peaks. I have news, Cade said quietly. Good or bad? Depends on your perspective. He turned her to face him. The pack healers confirmed it this morning. You're pregnant. Alara's world tilted. I'm what? Pregnant. About 8 weeks, they think. His hands settled on her hips, gentle and reverent. We're having a pup. 1,000 emotions crashed through her at once. Joy. Terror. Wonder. Fear. But I'm Omega, she whispered. What if they're weak? What if the pack? Stop. Cade's hand cupped her face. Stop borrowing fear from the future. Whatever our pup is, Omega, Beta, Alpha, they'll be ours. And we'll love them, and we'll teach them that strength comes in many forms. Tears slipped down Alara's cheeks. I'm scared. I know. So am I. He pulled her close. But we're scared together, that's what mates do. Alara buried her face in his chest, breathing in pine and winter and home. In the pack house below, wolves moved through their evening routines. Blackwood pack, thriving under leadership they'd learned to trust. Under a Luna who'd proven that rank didn't define worth. Under an Omega who'd taught them all that strength sometimes whispers. I love you, Alara said. I love you too, my fierce, brilliant, impossible Luna. Cade's hand settled on her still flat stomach. And I already love this little one. Omega or Alpha. Weak or strong. They're ours. Ours. Alara agreed. And as the sun set over Blackwood territory, painting the mountains in shades of gold and crimson, Alara finally understood what her father's letter had meant. The moon goddess doesn't make mistakes. She'd been rejected by her mate. Had fought an alpha. Had claimed a pack that didn't want her. And she'd won. Not because she was strong in the traditional sense, but because she was strong enough to be exactly who she was meant to be. The Grey Wolf. The Omega Luna. The one who proved that sometimes the greatest strength comes in the smallest packages. And as Cade held her close, their future growing inside her, Alara smiled, because she was finally, completely, perfectly home. If this story reminded you that strength comes in unexpected forms, subscribe because tales like these need audiences who believe in impossible victories. Drop a comment. What's your favorite moment from Alara's journey? And do you think her pup will be Omega or Alpha? Tell me your theories.